petrified fossils. Petrified fossils are stone.
Dun, dun, dun.
They are organic matter, like these petrified
Maybe we
trees.
should laugh. Why
Or
don't we start out
petrified
laughing
animals
before this?
that have been turned to stone. Actual
Dun, dun, dun.
bodies that were turned to stone through this process of mineralization. So I just want to clear that up, because I know people think that a lot of these archaeological expeditions that they're dealing with just, bones. They're recovering actual, some sort of organic matter. But that is not the case. These petrified fossils are stone. So think about what I'm saying before we move on to the next step. I'm talking about animals and people turned to stone. And I know some people are going to say, not people. People don't turn to stone because they can't be petrified. It takes millions.
With double thick adhesive that sticks to rough, dirty surfaces.
All right. I know nobody's here yet. I almost want to start out with something funny just to get us started off. How about a sweet little story? How about that?
To the rescue. After owners abandoned their pets during a hurricane, heroes come in to save their lives. Ryan Sevreda for the Daily Wire reports that volunteers saved several dogs over the weekend that had apparently been unwillingly left behind by their owners and were locked in a cage to fend for themselves as Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina. The Daily Mail reported that the dogs nearly drowned in the Hurricane Florence fast-rising floodwaters when they were rescued from a property in Leland, North Carolina. The dogs can be seen frantically waiting for
Yeah, this is sad, but no, it's a good video.
Save them from the cage as water levels continue to rise. Journalist Marcus DiPaola caught the rescue on video, writing rescued 6 dogs in Leland, North Carolina after the owner left them locked in an outdoor cage
fucked up.
filled with floodwater that was rapidly rising. Take a look.
Looked like there was a lock on the gate. That's kind of weird. Kind of looked like he had the key to a lock. I didn't see him with bolt cutters. Poor doggies.
Just glad these dogs are safe. Thanks to those wonderful people. Comment below.
Yeah, how sane is that?
For the Next News Network. I'm curious.
All right, something else we can laugh at or something? You know what? That one's a pretty good one, but... All right. We're going to laugh before we get to the main
first bit of the
course.
story where you were just sitting in class and what tumbled out of his mouth?
Well, he was showing us a Dave Chappelle skit where Dave Chappelle was making fun of white people. And then he was saying, oh, comedians give political relief. We need to listen to them. They're the voice that we need to, get us through these tough times in America when we're divided. And I raised my hand. I was like, doesn't it bother you that comedians can't come on college campuses anymore? He's like, no, because of white supremacists like Milo Yiannopoulos. And that's when I was like, no, he's not a white supremacist. And you couldn't give me an example. I pointed it out.
Yeah, so I said we first got in contact because you sent me a video and you asked, is there an example of this? And he suddenly went, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I have to look it up.
Let's play the first bit of the video we have just with what you've just described, and then we'll talk about it because it's funny as hell. Here's the first bit of it.
Good satirists can contextualize a thing in a single cartoon.
Doesn't it bother you that comedians can't come on college campuses anymore?
Yeah, Yeah, but we're happy to invite Richard Spencer or some neo-Nazi, right? Like, I mean, that's the big controversy going around. So, I mean, white supremacists, they can come to campus. We can't invite a comedian.
Like who?
Milo.
Well, he wasn't able to come here.
But he was just invited to like University of Michigan or something.
But he's not a white supremacist.
Sorry?
He's not a white supremacist.
He absolutely is.
No, he's not.
Milo?
No, he's married to a black guy. How is he a white supremacist?
All I want to say is that Milo has systematically proposed an ideological worldview that only ends in one place, and that's the same place that Richard Spencer already is.
Can you give an example?
I would have to dig for like his articles or some of his speeches.
Then how could you say all those big words?
You ask him.
You think you say big words and you sound smart.
Oh, I'll have to come back to it. I think you rattled him because what happens next is really funny. He shows up in class. Tell us.
Yeah, he was like, well, I'll get to that. I'll find examples. And I was like, I've seen his speeches. And he's like, no, I'll come up. I'll put it on my list. So then he comes the following day, the Thursday, with like this whole presentation with a PowerPoint and everything to try to one-up me.
Trying to. This is sort of like you've really rattled him, and he's not sure of himself. So he goes and he, as it turns out, plagiarizes a BuzzFeed hit job.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He has this huge PowerPoint presentation, which is basically just cut and pasted from BuzzFeed, including a graph that he doesn't credit.
He probably contacted BuzzFeed and said, hey, can you help me?
All right, let's watch this bit after this. Just want to see what happens in the class next to what he comes back with.
Milo Yiannopoulos or whatever. Okay, I said the other day that he was a white supremacist, white nationalist, and you were like, I don't think he is. And so I had to dig into it. Why would you suspect he's a white nationalist? There's a bunch of reasons. Number one is the privilege grant. He instituted a scholarship, he created a scholarship by himself that's only available to white men, and it claims that white men are disadvantaged compared to female, queer, and ethnic minority classmates. The white male is the victim, which is the implicit. He also has opposed LGBTQ rights, and he called
Doesn't know how to say it fluently.
He was a key leader at Breitbart News, and one of his key roles was he enabled the alt-right and white nationalism to prosper in this country. He mainstreamed it. Quote from him, it's not about white nationalism, it's about Western ideas being the best. West is best is actually white nationalism. Self-hatred is often the root of racism. White civilization, anti-Semitic, racist, racism. Hitler, racist, racist. Is there evidence, a lot of evidence, that this guy is a white nationalist? Yes, there is.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ariana. You probably infamously know me for being the one that's been arguing back and forth with Professor Height thus far in the semester.
Welcome to The Milo Show.
Hello. Broadcasting from South Florida, this is The Milo Show. I'm Milo, and today a special greeting to you, Professor Height. Now, I am, as you may know, a gay, Jewish, black-sucking immigrant, and under normal circumstances, you ought to love me. But you don't, because I have the wrong politics. Now, it turns out that I don't just love guzzling black dicks. Actually, I'm in love with a black man. He's my husband. And I don't just fetishize his skin color, as you social justice warriors like to say, but I love him. I respect him. I cherish him. And he loves me. He makes me a better version of myself. If it doesn't persuade you that I could fall in love with and be loved by an African-American man, and if that doesn't persuade you that I'm not a racist, I don't know what would. I'm not sure what would. I'd quite like to find out. Now, look, you and I obviously have very different definitions of white nationalism. You have called me a white nationalist to your class, in a public school using taxpayer money to smear a conservative commentator in defiance of the facts. How about we talk it out? I'll come up to your class. I live in South Florida. It's very
look how much of a little bitch he is.
I'm happy to come up any Tuesday of your choice. Let's debate in front of the class, live. Let's do it. And it doesn't have to be televised, you don't have to live stream it, doesn't have to be a public spectacle. This can be a private event if you want it to be, if you're worried that you might lose. Or it could be a public event if you think you've got something to say. I am not a white nationalist, and I'm not a racist, but I am a conservative, and that's enough these days to have you smeared by journalists whose headlines you're obviously believing. That's a pity, but I wouldn't like in a public school for you to mislead your students in that way, so I invite you to a debate, your terms, you name the date, you name the place. I hope you'll accept my invitation. Thank you very much, Professor Hyde.
That was awesome. All right, let's get to the meat of the bones. Sorry, I was trying to wait for some people to get.
These humanoid hybrids.
My
or
goodness.
Now, this video
Camera
is
has
not
been
going to be
stupid.
for everybody. Now, this is going to seem really out there to a lot of people who haven't studied this stuff in depth and aren't this far along in their awakening, because this is paradigm-shattering stuff. This is about how far from reality we really are. How the world that we live in is almost nothing like what they have told us that it is. And the history of this place we live is almost nothing like the re-education camps have told us that it is. So if you have been on my channel and you've watched stuff like this, Nephilim hybrids and all of this, 5 shocking things you never knew were in the Bible, the whistleblower about what's going on in Antarctica, or any of these humanoid hybrids, or especially if you've watched like The Giant in Afghanistan, or this End Time Awakening about the giants and the contamination of the human gene pool and all of this type of thing. If you've watched these and you're like, oh, that's total BS, and you're out of your mind, you're a nutter, stuff like that, then this video most assuredly is not for you. Then you probably want to click off right now, because this might do more harm than good for somebody who has not had these baby steps leading up to the realization of our history. But I would hope that you would continue your research and drink the baby's milk until you can eat the meat, because this that I'm about to talk about, it's meat. Some of you will easily digest this because you're wide awake, but some of you cannot digest this, so you might want to wait. So I'm just going to start by talking about petrification, what petrification is. The process by which organic matter exposed to minerals over a long period of time is turned into stone, an organic object that has been turned to stone. So, when we think about fossils and stuff, a lot of times we think that they're just digging up actual bones. But these aren't bones, they're rocks, most of them. Of course, we dig up bones, no kidding, but I'm talking about petrified fossils. Petrified fossils are stone. They are organic matter, like these petrified trees or petrified animals that have been turned to stone, actual bodies that were turned to stone through this process of mineralization. So I just want to clear that up, because I know people think that a lot of these archaeological expeditions that they're dealing with just, bones. They're recovering actual, some sort of organic matter. But that is not the case. These petrified fossils are stone. So think about what I'm saying before we move on to the next step. I'm talking about animals and people turned to stone. And I know some people are going to say, not people. People don't turn to stone because they can't be petrified. It takes millions and millions of years to petrify fossils. And even Bible believers may believe that it still takes thousands of years or millions of years, because fossils are from dinosaurs, right? They're from the antediluvian world, which means the pre-flood world. But that's simply not the case. There are tons of examples. Here's a petrified leg inside a boot. Here's a petrified hat that was made of organic material, probably leather. Here's a fossilized hammer, where the wood part of the hammer is partially coalified with quartz and calcite crystalline. But we'll start with this human leg, because this human leg was found inside a boot that could be identified by the boot company that was from Texas, that began manufacturing boots in 1936. So it's impossible that this is billions of years old or millions of years old, and it's just like the hammer. Unless you think dinosaurs were using hammers, none of this makes sense. And that's what I always say. about mysteries and anomalies. There are no mysteries and anomalies. The truth is right in front of our faces. When you say the word anomaly, that means evidence to the contrary. So if something doesn't fit the narrative, the official narrative, if something doesn't fit the official version, the official theory that they're shoving down our throats in the re-education camps, then it's not an anomaly because it doesn't fit. It's evidence that the theory is incorrect because science incorporates all data to come up with a theory, a hypothesis. You can't just take data that doesn't fit your theory and go, oh, that's an anomaly. It's a mystery. No, it's evidence. It's evidence and it's science that proves that this paradigm we have been taught that we are living in is inaccurate. Like here, this fossilized hat, they make a little quip. Is this a caveman's hard hat? You know, no, of course not. This is a modern hat, and yet it is petrified. It is made of stone now. Likewise, this human leg that was found inside this boot, obviously the rest of the body is broken off through erosion and is probably in pieces all around that we just perceive as rocks. But this boot has been through CAT scans and MRIs and has been tested, and all of it, there is a complete human foot and part of a leg in here, and now it is limestone. It is just a rock, but it is a petrified fossil. So the CAT scans and stuff were performed at Harris Methodist Hospital in Bedford, Texas on July 24th of 1997. This gives all of the technicians' names and all of this information. I'll put the links below so that this is in a museum. All of the scans are in the museum, the foot and leg and the boot, all of it. It's in the museum, so you can go see it for yourself. I'll put all those links below. And here's another one. Here is a finger, a fossilized human finger that has been found. They have dissected it. It has also been replaced with limestone. They have done all of the CAT scans, x-rays, MRIs on it in Oklahoma. All of this information, again, will be below in the links. And I specifically bring up this finger because it looks like a stone, stones that we see all around us all the time, smooth stones. And this will lead to some research that I'm going to get into here in a minute with a gentleman who calls things no-toes. He calls stones no-toes. And that's because these digits, once they're petrified, they break off. He deals a lot with the petrified fossils of human feet and hands and things like that that are unrecognizable to us because the digits break off so easily. So again, you can see, this could, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you could see how this could be mistaken for just an oval stone. And it is a stone, but it was also a human finger. These are all pictures of the petrified forest, and we've all heard of that. We don't talk much about petrified humans or petrified animals, but we do talk about the petrified forest quite a bit. So let's look at a couple of these pictures. And again, some of these are monstrous, absolutely monstrous in size. So, at first glance, this looks like some strange rock formation, but of course now we know these were giant trees, and you see all these little stones around it from the erosion and little pieces being broken off and stuff over decades and centuries and millennia. So we have all of these smaller stones that are part of the landscape, and we just assume those are rocks, like rocks just always were rocks. But those, even though they don't look like trees because they're broken into little pieces, those are all little pieces of these trees from this petrified forest that have been broken and scattered over all the centuries and millennia. And there are petrified forests everywhere, not just in America. Here's one picture of a petrified forest, and you can see the types of stone. So when we see petrification, there's all different types of stone. Things turn into all different types of stone, not just limestone. It just depends on the conditions, the water levels, the amount of time, what type of sediment and minerals were in the sediment around that covered these things. So you can see these petrified trees look much different than the ones in Arizona. So let's look at this one. So we just say, oh, here's this mysterious rock sitting here in the middle of nowhere. But what if this was something petrified? Not a tree, but organic matter that petrified. I mean, look at it. It looks similar to a sphinx. Now, I know that might be a stretch, but I just wanted to kind of slowly bring you into what I'm about to tell you. The Great Awakening is here. But the Great Awakening is about far, far more than just politics and QAnon and the cabal and all of that. I just wanted to put this picture of these dinosaur bones up so you guys can keep this in mind as you start viewing these pictures I'm about to show you. Because some of these quote unquote rocks are enormous and it's hard to wrap your mind around it. And although the Vatican and the Smithsonian have secreted away much of the evidence and have created this false narrative to explain what these things are that we see with our own eyes, at least I think we can all agree at this point that they did exist, that dinosaurs did exist, that giant creatures once inhabited this place we call Earth. The Bible calls it the antediluvian age, the pre-flood era, the first Earth age. And I bring that up not to be religious, because the presence of water is key. Water, pressure, temperature, weight, enormous amounts of sediment covering these creatures all at once, suddenly, things like that are very important to understand the fossilization process, the petrification process, and that it does not take millions or billions of years. And water is also important because the presence of water completely messes up our entire carbon dating process. So anyway, let's get to it. Let's get started. Let's look at some of these pictures, and hopefully you'll see that the entire Earth is covered, just sprinkled over every continent, these quote-unquote rocks that look exactly like huge animals and creatures. And we just climb on them and walk around them and go to the beach and take our picture with them. And the scientists tell us, isn't that odd? What a coincidence. Look what nature does. The geology just somehow naturally forms all of these stones all around us. Everywhere we look, all around us, we see skulls and faces and feet and hands and animals and everything else in the rocks all around us. And we're just told to ignore it. Don't look around you. If you look around you, isn't it amazing that geology just naturally makes it look like the ground and the rocks are made up of creatures? But I'm here to show you guys that geology was once biology. want to interrupt the slideshow right here because this picture reminds me of Beaver Ridge. And the Native American legend around that was that the ridge itself was part of a giant ancient beaver, a petrified beaver, and that there was a living giant humanoid in the area that they had to appease. And at some point they had a falling out with him, and they said that he cut off their water source by stepping on their creek and damming it up. Now, in our modern paradigm, that seems impossible. It must just be mythology or legend. But they said it really happened in ancient times. So I thought that was interesting in light of these things that we see, like giant petrified beavers and lakes shaped like giant footprints. Now, before we go on to the next level, I want to stop and touch on the science behind this, the CAT scans, the MRIs, the DNA tests, all of the geology work and the anatomy work that is being done in this field, because a lot of people will say, oh, they're just rocks, like we're just wild-eyed, conspiracy theorists that don't study science, and there's nothing further from the truth. This is being suppressed. This evidence has been, Roger took this to Yale University and other places. It's being actively suppressed, but there is science behind it. So I'm just going to show a couple of quick clips from Roger at Mud Fossils University, and he will talk about how the mud fossils line up with anatomy, the geology compared to anatomy, and all of the things with veins being veins. When we find veins in these stone, that they're actually veins and things like that. Now, I know this is elementary. This is Mud Fossils 101, and a lot of people think I'm moving too slow, but I'm trying to create a tool to reason with people that have never been exposed to this type of thing. There's a huge communication gap, and you can't just blast people in the face with this out of the blue and expect them to understand, because in their paradigm, they're living in a totally different world. So although I had to start way at the beginning and talk about petrification and all of these things, if you've studied this for a long time, then please forgive that and understand that this is a tool. And hopefully, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, this will help build a foundation so that you can receive it. Because, sometimes you have to offer people a sip of water on their journey, and you can't just take a fire hose and blast them in the face. You have to give it to them where they can digest it. So hopefully that's what I'm doing. And for those of you who have studied this a long time, I'm sorry that it seems to be going slow. This is just scratching the surface on the research and the images. So the go-to guys on that would be Roger at Mud Fossils University. You can find him on YouTube, Facebook, anything like that. Age of Disclosure has a ton of images and good work, and Dictionary of Truth is doing some fantastic work right now. So check all of them out. You can find them on YouTube. So we haven't even gotten to any of the really interesting or shocking stuff yet, but let's touch on some of the science so we'll clear up some of the questions before we tackle this deeper stuff. So these next few clips are from Roger Spur of Mud Fossils University.
All right, anybody's ever paid attention to the mud fossils knows that I talk about the veins and the arteries all the time. Now, your artery will come down with fresh red blood. It has oxygen in it. It pumps it down, and it goes through all these little blood vessels, and it comes out the other side of the vein and gets sucked back up goes back up to get more oxygen. And that is, and you see this side goes, they tanned them up here. See, there's two that get pumped in, and there's two that come back. There's two that get pumped in, and there's two that come back. Now, you see all these little tiny dots out here? That's the ends. That's where they stop. And there's a whole bunch of little tiny holes, and they go across. And here's what does happen. At the very end, this is a distal phalanges fingertip, exactly like you have here, only it's been deteriorated. And I have another one here that is not deteriorated. These are from giants. That's just what they are. Now, and this one was the same thing. It didn't blow out at the end like this one did. This one is more deteriorated, and it blew out from, you see those two sides there? See? That's that is the arterial side. It blows out because the arteries don't have any clamps, and it tries to push the blood, and they blow out there and out the end. It's the same exact thing as you see here. Now the other side, the vein side, doesn't, because that's being slurped back up to the heart, and they close off here. See the clamp? They clamp off here. See right there. And the other one is up here. Same as they have here. Exactly identical. No difference. Now, you see that black thing right there? That's what's called a distal phalanges bone. The tip of the bone. And that is right in the tip of your finger. That's what it is. Now, and that's the pattern that it makes when the bone bleeds out. And that's called, it's a ferrous oxide that bleeds out through stuff, just like this is bleeding out. This is ferrous oxide to iron. It bleeds out through the tissues in the wood, same as it bleeds out in the tissues in this. And this is a mud fossil kidney, and you can see all of the same articulations. You see these boom, 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 boom. They have the exact same things, but you can't see them as well. See them? Boom, 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 boom. Same things. It's in the mud fossils. They are so far superior to the to what they're using for anatomical models. It's amazing. Anyway, let me show you some other stuff. Okay, this is an opalized heart, and these are the little heartstrings of the heart and all the different ventricle walls and everything. Now, you see all these different colors. You see that blue extends all the way around there? That just happened by accident. That tissue wants to have a transition metal to stabilize, which causes it to be blue. And I can show you the transition metals, and I will in a second. All right, this is the thing they don't understand. Well, the carboxylation uses these transition metals to drive things around your body and deliver oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide and glucose and do all the different things that they do to provide your body with nutrients and minerals and flush it of the bad stuff. And that's what's in your blood. And these have to be there in the correct amounts, and they are mined by the bacteria that's in your body. That's how it works. They create enzymes, the bacteria, and the enzymes seek out these.
So anyway, I don't have time to put all of his research right here, but he goes on to explain all about transition metals and the ion colors and how we get these veins, literal veins of amethyst, veins of gold, veins of silver, how these transition metals actually settle out during this petrification process and this mineralization process and all of this, and it produces all of these colors that we see in the stones around us. And we mine them. We mine these stones and we act like we even call them veins. Oh, it's a vein of gold. They found a huge vein of gold, veins of silver, Obviously, part of our subconscious remembers this because we call them veins, and they are literal veins.
You see that? That's from the transition metals that are in some of these specimens that I'm testing. We're running through with the microscopes, and this is what we're seeing inside it. Now that's this blood. The black is the vein blood. The red is the arterial blood. That's the blood supply. And then you have your transition metals. There's gold in here. There's gold, and there's all kinds of different. It's called electrum. And that's what we're finding in these, in certain areas. I mean, you don't see them everywhere. Called the grip skin. Now, this is very, very transition. You can see it's turned into like crystal. Now, this one has not transitioned as much, and this one has the grip skin, and it's still fabric. You see that? These little white fibers. That's they call it keratins, and they're little fibers that are in what they call the grip skin, and that's the tough skin on your fingers and your feet and your toes and on the bottom, the real tough stuff. And this one here has it as well, but you can barely see it. You see there's a pop. By the way, everybody asks about the DNA report, and it's right here. And if you go in, it will tell all about that. There's 3 specimens we had tested, and it tells all about how they did the extraction and the all the different things. They had to put it in certain conditions, this and that, and everything was done very, very, very textbook. Deep inside samples, nothing right on the surface. All kinds of negative controls checked out, no problems. All the negative controls came out negative. And it goes down, on. So that's what we got as far as that goes. Now, then on, I have a lab report. Well, I talked to the lab here too.
Right, usually 100 to 200 tops because the DNA is so fragmented because of just the, the degradation.
This is a couple of years.
The years and, wear and tear and things like that. But I was able
This is
to,
a big toe I'm going to show
primers
you.
that were in that paper that the
That's a
group
one.
had success with, and that seemed like the best option. And the,
Another one.
mitochondrial DNA primer that will essentially amplify all types of vertebrates.
That's a
So,
one.
not just human, but any kind of vertebrate life form. And
That's
so they're
rock.
sort of a universal type of fit for
Tendon.
these samples because we don't know obviously what the samples consist of. So
Oh.
the sequence that came back, it was roughly, for each of these fragments about 100 base pairs matched them up in the database.
Another
And they
deteriorated
matched
bone.
with the human mitochondrial. There's two regions
Oh.
of the mitochondria. One is called the D, like the letter D is in dog, the D loop. And then the other one I believe is for cytochrome B gene. The mitochondria has several different genes that it consists of, but
Finger.
these primers were specific for those areas of the mitochondrial genome. So so I considering where we started a couple months ago, that's those are nice results to have.
Yeah, that's kind of
In
amazing.
the PCR.
That was the lab. Now that's a lung right there. You see that? That's the pleura they call it of the lung. The ancients used to call it tunica. It wraps your lung, and then you get down into the lobes of the lung. See how it's already red down there. It's just they're everywhere, and they're just not. They just can't get their eyes open. They can't get their minds open, and they just can't look. So they just ignore it because they're afraid of the result, and the result is going to be kind of devastating for them because they won't pay any attention to this. That just shows how closed their minds are. So it's up to them. It's up to you. Have a nice day.
So like I've talked about before in a lot of other videos, we have a ton of problems with the geological column. We have built error upon error upon error, or maybe deception upon deception and lie upon lie, to get to this place where we have a total misconception of world history and a total misconception of geology. At its core, what the rocks actually are, what the earth is actually made of. Starting with the geological column, they use circular thinking. So they have titled all of the layers of sediment and all of the layers of rock as different ages in the geological column. And they date those layers by the organisms found in them. And then they date the organisms by the layer that they were found in. So that's circular thinking. That's not science. You can't say, oh, I know how old this organism is because it was found in this
What up?
layer.
Hello from Idaho.
Oh, but I only know how old that layer is because of this organism.
My grandma lives in Idaho.
It's illogical. But we don't have free thought. We're just given a chart. Everybody who goes through the re-education camps are just given this chart and this picture, and it's ingrained in their mind, and this is what it is. But it's not science. There's just one tiny example of that type of thing when we're talking about stalagmites and stalactites. Some geology textbooks tell us that stalagmites and stalactites form at a rate of 1,000 years per cubic inch. Think about that. 1,000 years to get 1 inch. So then they use that false supposition to say, oh, we can date what these caves are and how long this, that, and the other. And it's all fake. None of it's true because right here is evidence. This is in Vincennes, Indiana. Here are tons of stalagmites and stalactites that are found in a building that is only 40 years old. So in this basement, here's an 11-foot column. There are 5 columns that are 11 feet tall. And no, they did not form over, I don't know how many inches is that, and 11 feet times 1,000 years per inch. No, this is only a 40-year-old building, and this is in its basement, and these columns formed. Again, all of the pictures and all of this information will be in the links below. But my point is, much of what we've been taught in geology is completely false. It's just supposition that has been disproven over and over again.
Over and again.
So with this as basis, now I want to go on and talk about what I'm really here to talk about.
Yeah, nobody's here for the best part.
And this is Hill of the Skull, Calvary. This is what the Bible records. The Bible records it as the Hill of the Skull, Calvary, where Christ was crucified. Here are just a couple of those Bible verses. Matthew 27:33. They came to a place called Golgotha,
The dragon will,
which
red dragon will
means
come from the
place
sea.
of the skull.
It's England.
And then Luke 23:27-33, the actual verse is Luke 23:33, and that's all the way down here at the bottom. And this is all about following Jesus according to his Lazarus died. They came to a place called the Skull. They crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on his right side and the other on his left. In the book of Enoch, chapter 7, he records that there were giants in the world 3,000 ells tall. 3,000 ells tall. Okay, so if you translate that, a lot of people, because that's just too much, they're like, okay, that's too much. There must be some mistranslation. So they dumb it down, and they're like, they come up with other ways, and they rationalize, and they're like, okay, it's just 450 feet, as if that's better, a 450-foot person. But if we just take it literally, like we're meant to take all of the scriptures literally, an L is an Old English measurement equivalent to 45 inches. If this was indeed the measurement, then that would make the giants just short of 2 miles high. Think about that. Now that seems hard to believe, but look at the pictures I just showed you, and then I'm going to show you a multitude more of these mud fossils. These giants, 2 miles high. Enoch is referenced in the Bible repeatedly, and it's stated that he was one of the greatest men that ever walked the earth, closer to God than any other man. In fact, it said that he didn't see death, that he didn't bodily die, that when his mission was completed, God took him up. Right here, it says in Genesis 5:24, so all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years and became the father of Lamech. So right down here in Jude 1:14, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, also prophesied about them. And it talks about Enoch being a prophet. It talks about Enoch being very close with God. And so we have the book of Enoch. And it's important to note that we're talking about someone very close to the creation of humankind, of the Hebrew race, the human race. So Enoch was only the 7th generation from Adam, and Enoch was Noah's great-great-great-grandfather. And another thing to note that we've often taken for mythology is the ages, the age ranges, because we're taught about it's progressive evolution, that things are getting better and better, at the same time that they contradict themselves and teach us that the world's in a state of entropy. Completely contradictory statements. We're progressively evolving, matter is progressively evolving. Oh, matter is in a state of entropy, that everything breaks down and decays and rusts and breaks down. Well, we know which is true. Clearly, the world is in a state of entropy. which brings me back to the age thing. We're taught, oh, look how far we've progressed. We're living 70 and 80 years. No, we are fallen. The human gene pool is contaminated, and it's just like us. Everybody's in a state of progeria, which is that disease that causes advanced aging, very rapid aging, and that's what's happening to us. But back in the beginning, the Bible records that lifespans were 800, 900, 1,000 years, and it was very common, like this, 300, 400 years. And that's not mythology. That's our misunderstanding. It's our ego. It's our egocentric sort of philosophy that, oh, we must be the pinnacle of something. Look what we've achieved and where we are. And we cannot accept the fact that, no, we are fallen. We are a fallen race. And this world's going to hell in a handbasket. But anyway, my point is that the book of Enoch should, although it's not canon, it should not be disregarded. It's not only historic records, it's also coming from one of the humans who walked the closest with God. And this is what he tells us openly. He tells us what the antediluvian world was like in those days. And all we have to do to confirm it is look around. Just look around. Open your eyes and look at the landscape. Look at the mountains. Look at the rocks. Just look around. Everything around us confirms it. It's true. The Bible is true. And this really isn't a new idea. You could see back in the 1500s and 1600s, 1700s especially, they did a lot of anthropomorphic landscape art, which is doing exactly what we're talking about. And don't think for a second that the elites, that the cabal, the hidden hand doesn't know all about this. Because look at the Noah movie. You want to talk predictive programming? Look at the Noah movie. Remember the rock monsters? They go through, I wish I could put the whole trailer on here. I'd love to play it. Just search Rock Monsters Noah movie trailer. And it tells the whole story. It talks about them coming to Earth as light beings, beings of light, but God got upset with them, and so they were fallen, and they were bound in these rock in the mineral kingdom, and God, no matter how much they begged him, wouldn't let them out, and just all of this kind of stuff that we talk about, the fallen angels coming, and all of this antediluvian world that is recorded in the records of every culture on planet Earth. And apparently, even though we know that the Vatican secreted away all of the historical records they could during the Crusades and all of that, and the Smithsonian has done the same, obviously the mystery schools have passed this knowledge down to, through these secret societies, because here we have this Noah movie, and when it came out, most Christians were like, what on earth is that? That's not biblical. Where would they have ever gotten that? But in light of what we're talking about here today, clearly they know something we don't know. Clearly they have retained this knowledge from ancient times, and they have passed it down through their mystery schools. But of course, in the Noah movie, they flipped it around like they always do to make it backwards, and they made these watchers, the 200 watchers in Enoch, were the fallen angels. But they made the watchers here, these rock monsters, out to be these poor good guys, and that it was the evil humans who had ruined the earth. Remember, Noah was pondering, should he even try to save his family, because it was all the evil humans that needed to be wiped off the earth. But the watchers, the monsters, they were good. So the general theory amongst people following this research is, just like this video says, the earth is a carcass of dead creatures, that the ground was alive. There are things that are still part of ancient history, that are part of the records we have from our ancestors, and then there are practices that we have that seem to be part of the human collective, sort of subconscious, and we're like, where did those come from? And so let's talk about a few of those. We have this notion of Gaia, that Earth itself is alive, that the Earth is alive, that it's a living organism. And what are the stars and what are the planets, really? And Roger seems to agree. He goes so far to suggest in some of his work that large swaths of land can be identified as things like fallopian tubes. And he can watch, mitochondrial DNA and things like that found in the land of the Earth itself. And many of the Earth researchers, they find as they research that out and they go down that rabbit hole, they come out at those ancient records, the ancient records that say the Earth is some sort of being, usually a tortoise, and that the Earth isn't a globe, that it's an animal or some sort of living creature. And then if we realize that these transition metals in the body can give us these beautifully colored stones and veins of silver and gold and things like that, it makes you wonder, is it a coincidence that this New Age movement, this occult movement, has taught their followers to take pieces of these fallen ones, to take stones, and they always use crystals and stones in their meditation, and they tune into those frequencies of those bodies, of those fallen ones, which goes back to the same warnings of the ancient biblical times, which is one of God's top 10. It's in the 10 Commandments, not to worship these idols. It was always talking about, the Bible's always talking about these gods of stone, these idols and gods of stone, and that they're dead and gone. Don't worship them, these idols of stone. And it's like, why? It's like, what's the big deal? Who believes a stone is anything? But in light of what we're talking about here, it makes sense. And to see that tradition carried on in the New Age movement, that they use these stones. They use these stones for their meditation. They worship with these stones. And the Bible mentions it too. So there must be some truth to that whole stone thing, because the Bible talked about before Christ came and gave us his Holy Spirit so that we could communicate with God again. The priests of the Old Testament would take a breastplate and they would put 12 different of these gemstones in it to create a harmonic, and they would put this breastplate on, and that would help bridge the gap, from that excommunication that we inherited through the contamination of the gene pool. That's what they used before Christ came. So there's some truth to this frequency thing that is going on with the gemstones. There's so much more I'd love to touch on, but this video is getting really long, so I'm just going to kind of close out with my personal testimony of why my spirit bears witness with this theory. And that's mainly because back when I was a teenager, I had an out-of-body experience, and I did a video about it here. It's a poor quality video. It was one of the first videos I did, and I didn't know what I was doing, but it's my genuine, heartfelt, truthful testimony of what I saw. This is called Life After Death, my NDE out-of-body experience. So it's in this category with the out-of-body experiences. It's also up here in this category with my personal dreams and visions. Right there, it's the one that's got that Bohemian Grove looking picture on my computer screen when I did it. But anyway, what happened at one point in that, I went to hell. I was not saved when I had this. I was not religious and not saved, and we didn't go to church, and I didn't know what was happening. I knew that I had night terrors and that I was tormented, and then this night I got yanked out of my body, and I saw hell. And one of the things that I was shown when I was there was I was running and running what felt like on rocky ground, when you're running on like big gravel, like big stone, you're twisting your ankle, and I was running, I was in total terror, it was pitch black, and there was a point in the experience that I realized that I hadn't been running on ground. I had looked down and realized that I was all covered in black, like I was this black being, this darkness, this being of darkness, and the whole ground that I was standing on was like a Holocaust pit, all of these other dark souls. And so the ground was made of these lost souls, just like me. And I just fell down on top of the pile. The amount of hopelessness there, I just can't explain it. You'll have to go back and watch this video if you're interested in that kind of thing. But from the time I was a teenager until now, I carried with me this knowledge, this secret thing. And I didn't even tell anybody, that I had an NDE or an out-of-body experience, because I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy. I didn't tell anybody for 20 years. But I carried this with me, this thing about the ground. And then the Lord, I got saved after that, and the Lord began to speak to me about Holy Spirit, began to remove the veil from my eyes, and I could see, I could understand the dimension, and how the dimensions weren't bubbles separate from one another. They were overlaid one on top of each other. So all of us here, where we're at together, we're not all in one dimension. We're in many dimensions, but they're overlaid. The way you can see a bat, we can perceive a bat in our dimension, but a bat is also part of a lower dimension. Although we can perceive that frequency, the bat can perceive infrared frequencies that we can't, but we're overlapped, so part of our dimensions overlap. And likewise, say with a dog or a dolphin, they perceive things in higher frequencies. Dog can hear high-pitched frequencies like a dog whistle that we can't, because they're also part of a higher frequency dimension, but they're overlapped with the dimension we're in, so we can perceive them and they can perceive us. But we're not necessarily in the same dimension per se. And by overlapping these dimensions, all of these kingdoms, we have the mineral kingdom, then we have the plant kingdom, then we have the animal kingdom, and we're taught that's the end of it. But God showed me it's not. Then there's the celestial kingdom above the animal kingdom, which is the resurrection we are trying to attain. So these fallen ones that go into the ground, they become this low frequency mineral kingdom. And then the plant kingdom is the next step up, and it draws all of the light out of the mineral kingdom. It's the resurrection process. The kingdoms layered on top of each other, the dimensions layered on top of each other is the resurrection process. So the roots of the plant kingdom go down into the mineral kingdom, and they take everything that's good, all of the nutrition, which is the light. It's the light. They're bringing up the light. Protons, the electrons, they're bringing that energy up. So it's resurrecting all that can be saved, all that is light will be drawn up into the plant kingdom. And then we in the animal kingdom, we consume the plant kingdom. So then we take in all that is light from all the kingdoms below us, the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom. And what is waste comes back out of us and goes back into the earth. So when they say you are what you eat, you really are what you eat. And that's why now that our system is so out of whack and we are just torturing these animals and mass producing them and eating them, and then we all have that, we have that cellular memory in us. We eat that and then we feel depressed and we feel, all of the heaviness from those spirits. Because things are the whole food chain, the whole kingdom, all of the dimensions. The Bible says all of creation groans together, awaiting the return of the Lord, awaiting that redemption when things are set right again. And then we continue on to be these celestial beings, which is what I'm always talking about in my video about the resurrection through Jesus Christ. That you need an addition. You need to be more than just an animal. You need that addition of the Holy Spirit. You're a triune being, not just a caricature or something. And to get that repair and start that process to move from animal to celestial kingdom, you need the Holy Spirit. You need to receive Jesus Christ, an actual energy, an actual light into your soul. And that's what the whole book is about. So anyway, that's why knowing that the mineral kingdom is absolutely made up, both literally and dimensionally and physically and metaphysically and all of that by these fallen ones, and everything that is left into the lower dimensions, into the lower frequencies that are eventually flatlining as all of the light is being drawn out and resurrected. Okay, then the next thing that happened, this all happened long before Mud Fossils or Roger Age of Disclosure. This was 30 years ago for me. And then, what was it, like 10 years ago or so, Google Earth came out. And I saw, people make those videos, they were all excited when Google Earth came out. And I saw this video of this giant Indian head on the Earth. And I almost threw up. I had such a flood of revelation that I almost threw up. I was sick. I had a sick feeling that I realized, oh my Lord, it is. I see it. And I had this revelation of what I'm telling you right now. So praise God that after all of this time, now there is a movement and there are people researching this and putting their life's energy towards revealing this.
Amen.
And I am 100% behind them. You know, we all make mistakes. I don't even agree with everything I've probably said on my videos. If I went back, I've grown so much in the last 10 years. And, you know, I may not agree with every single thing that's on all of their videos, but they're on to something. They're on to something, folks. And we need to listen to them and we need to learn from them. And also the flat earth movement. We need to listen to them. If you look at their research, they are on to something. Now, this is not a flat earth video, but I'm telling you, this earth, this place where we live is most certainly not what they have told us it is.
You don't live on a sweaty wet ball
of
of it.
resources. Let's put all our puzzle pieces on the table and let's do this. Let's do this for Jesus Christ. Let's have this great awakening. Let's do it. Let's have the revelation of Jesus Christ, the revelation of the truth in our lifetime. I love you guys. God bless you.
Talking about how Jesus is a evil baby killer. What? Alright. What's going on now? Antichrist. Jesus is evil? Really? Okay, so if Jesus is evil, what would you say good is? What's that, bud? What you got? So if Jesus is evil, what do you consider good? Baal? Horned God with tits and a freaking cock? Is that who you think is good? Who do you think is good? I'd like to know. If Jesus is fucking evil, I'd like to know. Come on. Cat got your tongue now that I'm here? Cat got your tongue? Come on, what you got, bitch? Is that it? No. Oh, I guess you're done, huh? Oh, I'm waiting for your rebuttal here, bud. No rebuttal? Come on. Come on, now I'm actually here. I want to hear your bullshit. Oh, got scared, huh? Hello? No? You scared, yes? Very much?
This
Yes?
video
Okay.
is sort of a part 2 to the video I uploaded yesterday, and I want to talk about something totally different, something go a little further than the petrified humanoid. This video is sort of a part 2 to the video I uploaded yesterday, and I want to talk about something totally different, something go a little further than the petrified humanoids and petrified animals and things like that we see in our landscape. And I don't want to relay the foundation that I did yesterday, going into petrification and the science of it.
He must. I guess he got
So if you
scared
haven't
since now
seen
I'm
that
here talking.
video, please go back and watch that first, because that has all of the science, the DNA tests, the CAT scans, the MRIs, to lay the foundation to help you hear and receive what we are saying.
You know, it's so funny is you can look at any civilization, ancient civilization, and they all knew the earth was fucking flat. Yeah. Wow. You have no friends? Well, that sucks. If you wanted to come here to make some, you know, kind of going off on a tangent. So if Jesus is evil, what do you consider as good? What would you say is good? Now that you're still here, obviously.
And that's very valuable, because this is some paradigm shattering stuff. The world we live in is nothing like what we have been taught the world is. So I know that video is long, but please, I encourage you to go back and watch that. And
There is no good. Okay, look.
Science.
Look. The God of this world is evil because the God of this world is Satan. Do you get that? So if you want to say there's no good in this world, I can agree with that. We're supposed to not love this world. We're supposed to hate this world because this isn't where we're supposed to be. But that doesn't mean there isn't any good in it.
And the archaeology and stuff that you need so we can move forward. But right now, I want to show you guys the most amazing thing that I found. This is a volcanic.
Jesus is not the God of this world. The God of this world is Satan, mate.
Came up in this form 225 million years ago.
Yeah, you're off there, dude.
No,
You're way
of
off,
course
man.
it's not.
I feel bad
It's a
for
tree
you.
stump. Anybody can see that. It's a tree stump. And so is this.
There you go.
And so is this.
He will be the God for 1,000 years. Yeah. Ay, ay, ay.
So is this. I think you get my point.
I guess you're somebody that has no faith and no understanding.
We see these.
I feel bad for you.
remnants of
I'm
this
sorry.
massive forest that once covered the earth. These massive trees. We see the tree stumps. And we're just told they're mesas, right? Mesas. Just amazing. Mesa means tabletop because they're flat on top. So we see these massive, petrified trees, stumps of trees all over planet Earth. That's not even the shocking part. The shocking part
I feel bad for
is
atheists,
cut
man.
them down. They're completely flat on top. And that leads us back to the video that I did yesterday. These enormous humanoid beings from the first Earth Age that we also see petrified all around us.
No
At
answer?
some point, we have to realize it's not a coincidence that we see faces and skulls and hands and
Okay, so what God do you
all
believe in
our-
that's
the
good?
rocks of our
What do you
landscape
consider?
all around
Let's hear
us.
what you got.
And then we see other life forms, not just the animal kingdom, but the plant kingdom. We see enormous tree stumps also petrified in the landscape all around us. At some point, we have
No
to
good.
let
Okay,
go
so
of this
then you're
false
saying we're in hell.
paradigm that the mainstream has fed us, and we have to start real
Well,
science.
you make it your own
We
hell.
have to admit that we are not the pinnacle of everything. Let your ego go. Check your ego.
There you go. See, she's
That's
telling you. Check your
actually
ego.
what we see with our own eyes.
Hell is a myth. Okay. So then, what is all of this? Why are we here? Are we not here to be judged? Are we not here for a reason? Or are you came from some goo that turned into a fish that climbed up and grew some legs and started walking around on land and ended up evolving millions and millions of years into a human? Are you an evolutionist? No, see, us Christians are here to be destroyed. I'll agree upon that. Yeah, that's kind of funny. So, what do you call it? Yeah, what are you then?
Or some fall down.
Good one, Eric.
Massive storms and cataclysms and high winds and, some just from rot. So do we see any evidence of that? Well, let's take a look.
Christians no longer exist on Earth. Wow. Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. That must suck. I guess the name must have got him here. My long, crazy name.
Every mountain on planet Earth is a fallen tree or a fallen giant. That's not at all what I'm saying. I completely understand that we have natural events, we have erosion, we have earthquakes, we have over the millennia, we've had tons of cataclysms and, mudslides and all sorts of things. I completely agree. I'm not saying that we need to discount all of that stuff, the natural events, but what I'm saying is that we don't
His god is Baal. Baal.
either. That there
Likes
are,
the horned
we
god
give them national landmarks
with
for a
tits
reason. We recognize
and a goat's
that
head.
they stand out in the landscape. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that
Joe,
every
oh
single
goodness.
mountain is a fallen tree or a fallen giant. So don't
Oh,
twist
yeah.
my words.
May Yahweh
I'm
open
just
your
saying
eyes.
that there clearly are
Baphomet,
remains
exactly.
of the antediluvian world all around us, and we can see them. We see hands and feet and faces and skulls and tree stumps and all of it. We see all of it right in front of our eyes. We have to stop disregarding all of these things and just calling them anomalies and mysteries because they don't fit the false paradigm. And we have to quit trying to force a square peg in a round hole with these bogus theories. Not one scientist in any of our lifetimes has ever seen lava flow in straws, in long fibers, hexagonal fibers.
Nope.
But we do see this structure everywhere in plant life. So maybe if we see something that looks like a giant petrified tree stump and it has this perfect plant-like cellular structure, we could just start there. Okay, so this is the United States National Monument we call Devil's Tower. And you can clearly see all of these hexagonal columns that go up the length of the entire structure. Now, they tell us lava did this. I've never seen lava flow straight up in perfect hexagonal columns, but that's what they say. And we see this same pattern in these buttes and places all across the earth. And you can see it does not look the way lava flows. So it's just mind-boggling that that's the conclusion they came to. But the conclusion
Scientists that only get paid if they say what they're supposed to.
perfectly mimics the structure of plant life. And you can see even the gravel, as the bark and different parts of the petrified tree have eroded off over the years, there's a gravel pit all around the structure. So there's the petrified stone, there's the missing pieces, and it reveals this sort of core of this tree stump that to anybody besides modern geologists, it looks exactly like plant life. And we see this structure everywhere. It's not just in Wyoming. This geometric pattern that we know we see throughout different life forms, it's a repeating sort of building block of life and cellular structure. We see it all on every continent. These eroded down trees, plant life, it's eroded down, and you can see these same sort of hexagonal geometric patterns. And regardless of what type of environment, they're in all different vast environments. They're not just like right around volcanoes or anything, but it doesn't matter. Everywhere geologists see them, they just explain them as lava. Like here, you can see some of them. Apparently the lava fell from the sky. It didn't break up through the ground as an intrusion because the hexagonal fibers, the pillars, don't even reach the ground. But anyway, here's a slideshow to take a look at some of these. They're everywhere. The evidence is everywhere. And I get it. It's hard to wrap your mind around these enormous enormous trees, and even harder to wrap your mind around that there was something big enough to cut them down, or like these petrified humanoid giants that we see in the stone of our landscape. I get it that it's hard to wrap your mind around, but we have to get there. We have to get there to understand where we are, who we are even. So one of the things you can realize once you see how big the trees were, then you can see that what we see in the petrified forest, which was always a bit of an anomaly because they didn't seem to grow out of the ground. They were just kind of
Well, it's left over from them cutting it down.
I'm not saying they were
They didn't use that part.
I think it's probably closer to the truth to say that these are branches that fell off of these giant trees, because these are the size of trees we see today. So I would assume that these that we see that fell to the ground and are shattered into pieces and are petrified into all these beautiful gemstones.
Oh, we got rid of the
These are the branches
non-believer. Good.
that we see that have fallen to the ground and they're petrified. So
I guess he got
for us to
bored.
do.
Well, hopefully he saw a couple of things that he couldn't explain, and we
I know
put
it's
a
hard for
seed
most
in
of
his
us to
brain.
conceptualize
That's all we
a
can hope.
world with creatures as big as dinosaurs, and the fossils and the plant life that we have recovered that they've admitted to us. So it's certainly hard for us to wrap our minds around vegetation that could be this huge. But if you have eyes to see, you can look at the Google Earth images and see that many of our hills and mountains and landscape resembles plant life.
100.
This looks like branches of a tree.
No, they'll tell you it's an Indian.
Branches of a tree. Not to mention the giant humanoids. But it looks very similar to the fossils that they've shown us. Because we were all born into this world when it was already in a state of entropy, when it's actually at the very end of the age, where it's been stripped and it's desolate, and we think this is...
And we've been lied to constantly.
We'll never know. So it's hard for us to wrap our mind around a world like heaven. When it talks about heaven, it's not what we see now. It's not what we're doing now. This
now is the zombie apocalypse.
In a handbasket. This is a flatlining area. But the 60 to 70 archaeological finds that we now have bound together and we call the Holy Bible, because our ancestors took the time to recognize that they were the authoritative record of Earth's history, and they took them and translated them and bound them together so we could all have the book. That's what the Bible means, the book. Bible translates the book because it was the authoritative record. And it records a time on Earth that Earth was Eden. And I've long said that Eden isn't a tiny little area in Mesopotamia that people were confined to. Earth is Eden. Earth is Eden. The trees, the tree of life, the trees talked about in the Garden of Eden are these enormous trees that we see the stumps of today. This is the remnant of the age that used to be. And not just the Holy Bible records it, every culture records it. We call it mythology because it seems so far beyond what we can comprehend. Because we live in this desolate,
It doesn't take too many generations to brainwash the world.
That we think always was. But this is the death. This is the death of a planet. This is the death stage of entropy. And at the center of the garden was the tree of life, which now we have the ancient records. They call it, I think, Meru, because the tree also has been cut down in this dimension. And it's
see, people don't get like that New Age crap is literally just, it's leading them away from God. You know, they really don't get it, and they think that they're so spiritually understood, and I've been opening my third eye and this and that, and it's like, dude, no, you've been grabbed by the devil, and you don't even freaking see it or know it. And, you know, I feel bad for those people. You know, I looked into that New Age shit for a little while, and only thing I could gather out of it, I'm like, this just all seems like this is a happy, fun path to hell. That's all I could find. I mean, the more I looked at it, it was like, yeah, it'll make you feel good, this, that, and the other thing, but it was really just seemed like an easy, fun path to hell. You know, it's just insanity, these people. I feel bad for them.
And they call it a mountain, just like the pictures I just showed you. They call it Mount Meru. It's the remnants of the tree that grew at the center of the earth, in the center of the Garden of Eden. I know that if you even speak of these ancient maps or any of this evidence, you'll get accused of being a flat earther. And I also know that when you're faced with this stuff, this information for the first time, it's psychology 101. So I understand when people unsubscribe, you know, they're going through the phases, anger, denial, acceptance. I get that. But I want to be clear that this is not a flat earth video. Personally, I do not have enough information
It's a stream
to
reality
come to
check.
a conclusion about the shape of the earth. I've never been up high enough to see it. And
I have.
certainly not in
It's
any
flat.
secret
I've been in many
societies or
planes.
am I privy to any information passed down through the mystery schools? But what I do have is all of the regular tools and technology that we have in this era to measure. You can measure. You can get your Nikon camera and you can look out over the horizon and see if you can see further than you should be able to mathematically. And I have the actual video evidence to see the fakery and the CGI and the different things we see. So Although I can't come to a conclusion about the shape of the Earth or anything, I do have enough proof to come to the conclusion that we have been lied to. We have been lied to. They have faked images for some reason and broadcast them to us as real. So even though I don't have all the answers and I can't tell you exactly where we are and what this dimension is, what this thing is, I can at least admit that. I can at least admit I don't have all the answers. And because I can admit that I don't have all the answers, then I can keep an open mind and I can continue learning until we get there. And that's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to look at some of this evidence. Now, this is evidence that is also used by flat earth researchers, but they come to conclusions. I don't think this evidence is conclusive of anything other than we've been lied to. So I want you to view the evidence through other eyes, through new eyes. Maybe the earth, what if the earth is round and it's enormous? What if it's so much bigger than we've been told? And that's why the math doesn't work out. And they're only taking, they're only showing us images of a small portion. What if there is more land, like these maps that have been recovered show? What if the few continents that we are allowed to live in inside this little ring, what if this is a plantation? What if this little piece of land, this little bit of land that they allow us to live on, what if this is their slave plantation? What if they know that there's all of these other continents and paradises? Look at, say, Prophets Among Us, or channels like that, or different movements within the Christian movement that say they've been shown these places, these sort of paradise beaches, this different land. And when they ask the angels and stuff in the visions, is this heaven? They just chuckle. They say, no, it was something like that. What if these ancient maps hidden away in monasteries that are just now being recovered, showing all this extra land, what if that's the explanation for how these giants, how they had room to even move around? Why we don't see the slope of the earth is what they say it is. It's bigger. What if these hold the answer? That there are Nephilim races, and they're not coming from outer space. They're coming from the other side of this ice ring. And we're kept here as this slave race, as this prison planet type slave race for them. I mean, they call us human resources to our face. They tell us to our face, they use the actual terminology, labor force. They say, oh, you're not children of God. You're not gods. You don't have any power. No, you just evolved. You're monkeys. You're pond scum. Life is meaningless. It's just happenstance. You're here by accident. So just sell your life to us by the hour. We'll give you $10 an hour for your life, or we'll buy it by the year. We'll give you this much a year. So you just sell your life to us by the hour and join our quote-unquote labor force. They tell us to our faces, report to the Human Resources Office. You're a resource, like oil, like coal.
Yep.
So would it be beyond the stretch of all imagination that perhaps this is a plantation, that there's more,
Get off the plantation!
And here's one quick example of them hiding something, and it's old news to the flat earth researchers, but I'm not saying that it proves flat earth, but it proves that they used a window to cut off part of the earth, a circular window, and they lied and said that the camera was pressed directly up against the window. And you can see someone's arm move in front of the camera, so it's not up against the window. But here's them in their own words on Apollo 11 pretending it is.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
And then, of course, you see something move in between the camera and the Earth. So unless it is a giant out in outer space on the other side of the window that the camera's supposed to be pressed up against, then clearly they're lying. And of course, here's the rest of the infamous footage showing that the camera's way back in the vessel.
Yeah, I got some really bad glare here. Sorry, guys.
Lens, iris, or whatever opens up on the camera, and you can see that Earth there in the picture is actually being filmed from clear across the ship through a round
This is
window.
such bad glare.
So it wasn't
Oh, because it's
the
old ass
entire
footage.
Earth.
Probably.
Then when you look at the next images, the more modern images of the blue marble Earth, they keep showing us. And these are all shots directly from the NASA website. You can just go on there and look at these and do the analysis yourself. These are photoshopped. They're photoshopped. The clouds
They're
are,
photoshopped because they have to
clouds
be.
don't
That's
naturally take these
fucker
forms
says.
where it's the same exact form over and over and over. You know,
Oh,
no,
that's
they got lazy with their propaganda, and so when they do the cloning tool, they just think nobody would notice. You know, at a distance when you're looking at the big picture, and no one has. Nobody's really talked about this until the last few years.
Yeah, that looks like
But
cut and
it's
paste
right
clouds
there.
to me.
It's right there for everybody to see that they're using a clone tool. This is not a picture of the Earth, because everybody says, "Well, we've seen pictures of the Earth. You're all crazy." Yes, we've seen pictures of the Earth, photoshopped pictures of the Earth. Why would they do that if there's nothing to hide? Why would they use a circle window to cut out a swath that would make the Earth look round? If it's just really round, just put the camera up and take a picture out the window. Why would they Photoshop and clone clouds and create?
I know, yeah, they're fake agency. What is so pathetic is, like, look at that. That's the picture that they're showing us. And you're like, you guys take so much money from us. Why don't you do a better job? Well, think about it. They don't have to. Why waste more money on better CGI and all that? Why waste more money when 90% of the population is mentally freaking ill?
To the moon, you know, going around the Earth. But why are the clouds on the Earth never moving? I can go outside and do a time lapse of the sky, and the clouds are constantly moving. And it takes around 27 days for the moon to orbit the Earth. So are you seriously saying for 13 to 27 days the clouds never moved? It's like they just treat us like we're stupid.
They
And
do.
then here's two pictures of the Earth, both from the NASA website, one dated 2007 and one in 2012. And look at the size of the Earth. They're so sloppy.
Sorry, it's like getting some really bad glare.
It's unbelievable.
There we go.
So I know they have their rebuttals and why this happens, and they say it's because satellites take the pictures so they don't have any full images of the Earth, and they piece them together from the data. So which is it? Do we have pictures of the
State
Earth?
black
Have we seen
projects
the Earth, or
on
have we
Earth.
not?
Just
And of course, I could go on and on, parenting research that most of you have already seen.
oh, they're pocketing
This
so much
is
money.
not a
It's
flat
like what,
Earth video.
$57 million a
This is
day?
video about the antediluvian
We pay in
age.
taxes to
And
NASA,
being able to see with our own
which translated
eyes the
into
remnant
Hebrew
of it
means
all
deceiver.
around us.
Imagine
And yet
that.
at the same time being lied to and told by the establishment that we're not seeing what we're seeing with our own eyes, and that every single record left by all of our ancient ancestors on every continent and every culture is mythology. And I know there are still tons of people who are brainwashed and can't break free of the mind control and what they've learned in the re-education camps. But I am not ashamed of the Holy Bible, and I am not
Oh,
ashamed
no.
of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the truth. The word apocalypse doesn't mean war. It
No.
means the curtain being pulled back.
Yep.
To pull back the curtain or pull back the veil. It's the revealing. It means the exact same thing as the revelation. It's the revealing, the removing of the veil, the exposing of the truth, all of the hidden things coming to light. That's what's happening right now. The time is now. The Great Awakening is now. So I understand if you're still in those early phases of the awakening and you're still in the denial and the anger and everything that comes before acceptance. But I just want you to know that I'm
Motherfucker.
extending a hand right now.
Bit or something.
I'm extending the truth to you right now. Please receive the truth. Receive your red pill. Receive the truth. Receive the Lord Jesus Christ. The truth will set you free.
Oh yeah, no, exactly, because they knew definitely how to deceive. I mean, even Werner von Braun, he literally told, it was this chick, he has like, the great deception will come and it'll be an alien deception. Because that was the whole thing, you know, everybody is like, well, what are we gonna find? I mean, they've slowly milk fed us the damn freaking alien fucking agenda for, I mean, come on, since freaking the 40s. It's pretty sickening. All right, I think we got another good one here. Let me fix this grainy crap. Come on.
The tallest trees in the world are redwoods, which tower above the ground in California. These trees can easily reach heights of 300 feet. Among the redwoods, a tree named Hyperion tops them all. Standing at 380 feet, Hyperion also shares its name with the Titan god of heavenly
I mean,
light.
and think about it. Isn't it easy? How do you deceive the world into believing and letting demons come to rule them? Well, make them think they're an insignificant idiot. Fucking, and the cult has been around for hundreds of years. But make people think that they're insignificant and nobody and make them forget about God. And then you can bring demons back and let them rule over you and just consider they're more advanced from another planet in space, man. No, they've done a pretty good job to a point on the deception, but they're losing their power. They're losing their grasp because nobody goes from being a flat earther to being a glober. Nobody does, but thousands of freaking globers are becoming flat earthers every day.
Second for the world's tallest trees is Helios, standing at 374 feet. And for the bronze medal, we have another redwood called Icarus at 371 feet high. Interesting names. Now, the widest tree that we know of is called El Árbol del Tule in Santa Maria del Tule, Mexico. This tree has a circumference of 164 feet.
Damn.
And it dwarfs the town church by a large amount.
Yeah. Dude, that's insane. Look how it's... Oh, my goodness. I built the church up in the tree, man.
The largest tree by volume and not height or circumference is a sequoia called General Sherman. 275 feet tall with a circumference of nearly 103 feet.
Damn.
Now, these are just some of the world's tallest trees that are standing today.
Yeah, exactly.
Needless to say, the
Holy
sizes
crap.
of some of Earth's remaining trees
Gnome hole.
are absolutely mind-blowing. And the thing is, they used to be much bigger. Here's an article about an Australian mountain ash from 1872. The tallest tree ever measured was not a sequoia, but a type of eucalyptus, an Australian hardwood tree. In 1872, forester William Ferguson spotted an extremely tall mountain ash near the Watts River, Victoria, Australia.
You would hope so.
Purportedly, he was 132.6 meters, or 435 feet tall.
Damn.
Around that time, multiple specimens of 140 meters tall were reported in Victoria, mainland Australia.
Till the white man got there and
We
cut him
cannot
down.
check these measurements anymore. All these trees have been logged. Mountain ash was and is an important construction material in Australia.
Man, what a... Can you... Oh, God.
This brings me to my next
waste.
point. Do the trees of the world get bigger and bigger the further we go back in history?
Yep.
We have some records of
They're
men
getting
cutting
smaller
down
now.
extremely large trees in mass quantities. If trees of this magnitude were cut down by men in the 18 and early 1900s, then that begs the question, have we cut down even bigger trees before that? We don't know, but we do know that men love mindlessly taking out trees like there's no
Why?
tomorrow.
Well, they got paid for it.
Was there once a time when trees were unimaginable in size and they reached high up into the heavens? Maybe this is true.
The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth.
Here the Bible says tree, and I think this is referring only to the world tree, also known as the tree of life, located at the center of the world, and that would be the North Pole. In depictions of the Norse
Appreciate
cosmology,
you guys being here.
the tree of life, Yggdrasil, is growing from the center of a mountain. Here's a passage from the Book of Enoch, kind of talking about that.
That's a good book.
And from there I went to the middle of the earth, and saw a blessed, well-watered place, which had branches which remained alive, and sprouted from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain, to the east of it, there was water, and it flowed towards the south. And in the midst of the trees that of life, in that place whereon the Lord rests, when he goes up into paradise. And this tree is of ineffable goodness and fragrance, and adorned more than every existing thing. And on all sides it is, in form gold-looking, and vermilion and fire lichen covers all, and it has produced from all fruits. Its root is in the garden of the earth's end.
If you haven't given a thumbs up, give a thumbs up. Helps with the algorithm, guys.
End is Eden. Mythologies from all over the earth plane reference a tree or sometimes a mountain there instead. Sometimes both at once, as we have just seen with the depiction of Yggdrasil. Maybe humongous trees used to be the norm. We are told that natural landmarks like the Devil's Tower are made by lava cooling in that shape, and that the lava dries up into
Where's all the other lava? I don't see any other lava anywhere.
But when you look into how basalt columns are formed, you will not be able to watch how they are formed. Instead, we are told to just believe that basalt columns are the result of lava cooling down and cracking into hexagonal columns on its own. But when we look at how lava actually works, it never dries like that. It oozes chaotically before cooling down and drying in a random manner. It's merely circumstantial. No one has ever witnessed basalt columns form, therefore the official explanation is very much up for debate.
Not to mainstream.
So is the Devil's Tower an ancient tree stump? Are there more of these kind of structures? The answer is yes. Everything that we have ever been taught is
Look at all
up for
the
debate,
rubble at the
being
bottom.
that we've been taught mostly lies when it comes to where we come from, who we are,
That'd be
what our
awesome to be able to do.
purpose is, and where we live. Our true
Take some
history
balls.
has been changed, rearranged, rewritten, and hidden from us. This video is a joint effort between myself, ODD, Rosette, and two awesome gentlemen named Shaddy and Cracker. We hope to bring forth food for thought, intriguing ideas, and even new information for those that have already been researching this topic, including recently uncovered Freemasonic books from Lebanon that seem to support all this. So with all that said, I'll pass it off to Rosette. Be sure to subscribe to her channel as well.
Thanks, ODD. Being awake is not all bad. Yes, it's scary at first knowing our government is not our friend. That the world really is run by psychopaths who follow Lucifer. But there's a good side to
I
this
used to be,
knowing
not
too,
anymore, but
and that is connecting with like-kind people who want to
I don't know.
help change the
I think
world
it'd be
for the
fun.
better. People like
I don't think I have the
OBD,
endurance to do it.
Cracker,
Endurance to do it
and now
though.
our new friend Shadi. He has a passion for getting the truth out and has a special perspective he wanted to share. It is regarding his homeland of Lebanon and the giant cedars. In getting to know Shadi, I discovered that his first name is Arabic for singer, which reminds me of Jacob in Jacob's Ladder. His name was Jacob Singer. Jacob was a Christ character in that movie. Singer as in messenger. And I can't help to make the connection to our friend ODD, literally being a singer of truth, with his raps exposing the ball lie and everything else regarding the New World Order. Makes you
ODD
think,
is a shit.
do we truly pick our names? Or are we given our names? Birth names or pseudonyms, it doesn't matter. The name has a resonance that fits that person, and they are that name. And yes, like Jacob here, exposing 9/11, Shadi and ODD are here to also expose the ones behind 9/11. Notice Jacob sees with his right eye. He is of the right, of the good. Now, we can't do a series called Ancient Tree Research Project without discussing the giant cedars of Lebanon. This is the one place on earth that is known for its giant trees. These same giant trees come up in the Bible in 47 verses. Why? What is so special about these trees? Are they hiding some more truths in plain sight? Let's take a look at some of the evidence.
What could have cut things down so big? They would have had to been giants.
Now let's locate Lebanon geographically so we get a feel for the land. Lebanon is nestled between Israel on its southern border and Syria
Israel's
on
fallen.
both its north and east.
It's not the apple of God's eye.
Just over the waters of the Mediterranean is its closest western neighbor, the island nation of Cyprus.
Probably was it was probably a cypress tree that whole bottom of that island.
Country to Lebanon can indicate cypress is in the tree, and cypress has fragrant wood just as a cedar tree does. This is a picture of an ancient cypress tree.
Damn.
Cedar trees are part of the cypress family of conifers or pines, also indicating a connection to the pineal gland. Could cypress actually be an ancient giant cypress stump that is sticking up out of the water as an island?
Speaking of
That's
Cyprus,
what I think.
Cyprus is visible with the naked eye on a clear day from the highest point in Lebanon, which is called El Adaz. It peaks at 3,083 meters above sea level. These mountains get covered in snow during the winter time, except for a place called Adnat Sauda. This is said to be a special place where Noah planted a special seed right after the flood.
Remember also that Lebanon is part of the ancient land of Canaan, known as the Promised Land in the Bible. Canaan consisted of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and
Sorry.
Israel,
Excuse me.
and was also known as Phoenicia. Now, Lebanon has a unique flag.
That's kind of a cool flag.
There's a
I like
giant
that.
cedar on the Lebanese flag.
Like, that's a
A giant
sick
cedar
flag.
of life. Cedar, C-E-D-A-R, is phonetically the same as cedar, S-E-E-D-E-R. And what is the giant cedar of life? The tree of life. Is this giant cedar symbolic of the tree of life in the center of our world? Does this imply a connection to the tree at the center with the giant cedars of Lebanon? I would say absolutely. And the tree is green. Green is the color of the heart chakra, Anahata. And the heart is in the center of our chest, just like the tree of life is in the center of our world. So the green tree is the heart.
The green chakra could also represent Baalbek, which translates to in your heart. Baalbek is a town north of Lebanon, just behind the others. It is famous for its giant structure known as the Temple of Jupiter. The cornerstones of the earlier temple have been
Goodness,
found to weigh
that's
over 100
God.
tons.
Those buildings are
And the retaining
amazing.
monoliths weigh about 300 to 900 tons each.
I want to go there one day.
These
I just hate
blocks
flying.
and the others are known today as the Baalbek stones and have been the subject
Man,
of
I haven't
much
had to
debate
fly in
and study
like 8
and
years.
conjecture over how they were moved and arranged. Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek in 334 BCE. He named it Heliopolis, as in the city of the sun. The name is still in use in 64 BCE when Pompey the Great annexed the region of Phoenicia for Rome.
Wouldn't it have been nice to know what that place would have looked like when it was like
The city
pristine?
became a colony of the Roman Empire. Alexander the Great was a giant, so was Pompey.
execute their name.
And the Masons call their New World Order project.
Yeah, that would have just
great work.
that's a dream.
Their giant work.
Maybe one day we'll get to
And
see that.
remember, George Bush Sr. went by Magog, the giant, at Skull and Bones.
Yeah,
And hear
demons,
from his son,
demon
straight from the
spawn.
horse's mouth. Gog and Magog are at work in the Middle East. The biblical prophecies are being fulfilled. This confrontation is willed by God, who wants to use this conflict to
Yeah,
erase his
I couldn't
people's
imagine how that
enemies
place must have
before a
shined.
new age begins. But the God that George Bush is talking about there is Lucifer.
Yes, he
Right,
is.
that's his God. Back to the flag, it is on a white background. Now what's interesting is that when looking up the etymology for Lebanon, we find that it originates from the Phoenician root Leban, which means white. So Lebanon is implied in the coding. The white background means Lebanon.
Nice.
Remember also Noah's white dove, a symbol for peace. The white is flanked by 2 bars of red. Red is the color representing Christ. Christ is red-blooded, as are we. The ones against Christ, the Antichrist, are
The hell is
blue,
that?
blue-blooded, like the Blue Bloods, the royal elite. Blue is the color of the Star of David on the Israeli flag. And we know the Star of David is an occultic symbol consisting of 2 triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. Each triangle has 3 sides, so 3 and 3 is 33, the number of the Masons. And we know the Masons worship Lucifer.
You know what's funny?
The
Hold on.
Israeli flag is a
Sorry.
Masonic flag.
You know, so it talks about in the Bible that the red dragon would come from the sea. Does nobody even see that as England? I mean, I swear what England and Israel are doing to us, using us as their puppet to fight all their wars is, man, it's so damn sickening. It makes me want to throw up.
And the Masons worship Lucifer. What does that tell us about Israel?
It truly does make me want to throw up when I think
And 2
about how
bars of
just
red to show the heaven and
the world
earth
has been
connection,
deceived.
like we have in Norse mythology, with Asgard, the garden above, or heaven, and Midgard, the middle garden, or earth. The only 2 realms with gardens. The only 2 realms with the red connection. The 2 realms with the red connection. Earth, which is an anagram for heart, and heaven, an anagram for E-Haven, or Earth Haven, the sanctuary above. The giant cedars are mentioned 47 times in the Bible. That's an awful lot of times. Now we know these trees were giant by particular passages in the Bible. In Ezekiel
I know.
31:3, we read,
It is so funny. Like, what's so funny too about the left is like, oh, Trump's Russia's puppet, da, da, da. And then you have all their little communists running around in Antifa and all that. And it's like, man, you guys are so damn brainwashed. You're on the side of the people that think Russia is the most horrible thing in the world from what your leaders say that you follow. But at the same time, you got a whole bunch of little communists running around in your crap, and Russia isn't even communist anymore. I mean, I've listened to Putin's Christmas addresses, and I mean, they're powerful. It's like, whoa, dude, this guy doesn't want war. This guy has overseen his country have the biggest growth and boom in Christianity that has probably almost ever been seen. And they're evil? It's insane. Now you understand why, I guess, why they're coming after us Christians. I mean, it's been written that we would be persecuted and this and that and, 20,000 other things. But it is so funny that we're just so asleep and so divided when everything is actually really in plain sight if you have the eyes to see. And most people never have the eyes to see until they can find the first big lie. And, one of the questions I hate more than anything is, well, what does it matter if the earth is flat or round? It matters everything. Ah, I hate that. I hate that question.
Behold, Assyria
It's like
was
you're
a
that blind.
cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches and forest shade, and very high, and its top was among the clouds. The cedars were among the clouds. They have to be pretty tall to be that high.
Yeah.
In Psalms 80:10 it states, the mountains were covered with its shadow, and the cedars of God with its boughs. So the cedars were taller and bigger than the mountains. They shadowed the mountains. Giant cedars, Seeders. And notice what kind of man is associated with these majestic trees. In Psalms 92:12 we read, the righteous man will flourish like the palm tree. He will grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Remember, Jesus was God's right-hand man, of the right, of good, of God. And how does a cedar grow? Tall and strong, bigger than the mountains, reaching among the clouds. Tall and strong, like Shadi's grandpa, who stood almost 8 feet tall. And so was his brother. Very hard-working men who worked with fruit trees their whole lives down in Quinnabine. The men of Lebanon take after the trees. Tall trees, tall men.
You know, it's so funny because so many Christians back Israel because, you know, in the Bible it says that it's, you know, the apple of God's eye. And it was. But that freaking witness, that freaking tree, which was the group of Jews, they were the tree. They were the olive tree. And they broke and burnt and freaking were destroyed. Not completely, but mainly. Completely destroyed. Almost completely destroyed. Yes, it has regrown back. The worst part of it is grown back corrupt. But there is a part of us that fell off, that was grafted, that started its own tree. That's us. That is us, the Christians. I don't know if any of you guys saw my the video on the two witnesses. If you did not see that, check that out on my original channel, Zedek Pride. It's pretty damn good. It might be on this one, but I think it's on my other channel. That is a great video.
Tall men as opposed to giant men. There's a difference between a man, seed of Adam, who grew tall and strong, and the Nephilim, whose offspring were of enormous size. In Deuteronomy 3:11 it states that King Og's bedstead was 9 cubits in length and 4 cubits in width, which is 13.5 feet by 6 feet, according to the standard cubit of a man. So King Og was approximately 13 feet tall if his bed was just a little more than that. And at 13 feet would make him over twice as tall as what is generally considered a tall man at 6 feet. In addition,
Can you imagine
the Book
fighting
of
somebody that
Giants,
big?
which was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, was also called the Lost Book of King Og of Bashan. So 6 feet and 8 feet, like Shadi's grandpa, would be considered tall men, while King Og at 13 feet was a giant. So it's on the flag, it's in the Bible. Where else can we find the giant cedars? How about in the landscape?
The big mountain is called Al-Araz, which means the cedar in Arabic. It is the landscape and part of everyday life in the oldest Maronite Christian towns and villages which surround the mountain. The valley, or Al-Wadi al-Nubin, is Arabic for the Valley of the Holy Saints, or the Holy Valley. The mountains and the valleys provide excellent climate for growing the most beautiful fruit and vegetables,
Nice.
apples and olives to pears and cherries. Now, why would a civilization dating centuries ago name a mountain after a tree? It wouldn't make sense unless the mountain was a tree, a giant tree that
Nice.
had been cut down. This cut portion starts
Yeah, I
at
guess
1800
that'd be your best bet.
meters above sea level, which would be 60-story building.
Well, hey, they said Achilles was a giant of a man. Maybe that's why he had the way to take him out was cutting him by his heel. Because I don't care if you're fucking 60 feet tall. If I slash the shit out of your freaking heel, your Achilles tendon, your ass is coming down.
And that is just at the base. Notice how this cut portion is already among the clouds, as mentioned in and throughout Ezekiel. The mountain is also home to pine tree forests and cedar tree forests.
No, it's cool. But I think of Achilles. You know, our Achilles tendon, you know, comes supposedly from the story of Achilles. And that was, you know, that's how he was taken down. It was the slice of his foot back there of his ankle. And there, you know, people have talked that he was a giant of a man. You know, not many people say that he was a giant, but I mean, imagine that. If he was a damn giant, that would have, definitely been the great way to bring his ass down.
Which translates to the cedars of God.
And observe how the mountain looks separate from the floor. El Erez isn't a continuous mound of rock and dirt that slopes to the ground. Instead, El Erez extends downwards like you see on tree roots at the base of a tree. This also has a flat top, or mesa.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Mesa meaning table. Table of the giants? In nature, with erosion from wind and rain, you would not get a level top like a tabletop. You would get an irregular and rough pattern where rock becomes loose and gives way. So a flat top implies some form of cutting or sawing.
Yeah, either or will bring it down. Bring it down.
To a tree trunk and can be distinguished from the plain below.
This is a view from above. Notice how clean and blue the sky is. Notice how flat and level it is. These photos are from my village in Hasrun. Hasrun is a Phoenician term for fortress, and the town truly is a fortress because we are the oldest Christian village in all of Lebanon.
Yes.
And we have defended ourselves from invaders for 6,000 years.
What?
The Phoenicians invented the alphabet and were known as kings of the sea. They dominated travel as they used cedar trees to craft boats and ships. This was because the cedar tree could survive the snowy winters and the salty summers. This tree was durable to the salty oceans all over the world. They traveled to Egypt and Africa, down to the Mediterranean, and even all the way to Australia. They were experts in trade and maintained peace with many different cultures. The Phoenicians were known as the purple people to other cultures. In the Wadi an-Nubin, or the Valley of the Holy Saints, you can see the caves that the Christians hid in during the invasion of the Ottoman Empire. We have monasteries here that were built in the 1600s, so over 400 years ago. My uncles have worked in them and have first-hand knowledge of giant bones being discovered in them years ago, until the church came and took them away. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like whenever they discover giant bones in the US, a team from the Smithsonian Group comes by and hauls them away, never to be seen by the public again. Smithsonian. Smith is code for Mason. Both the church and the Smithsonian are hoarders of true knowledge of our world, sharing the same allegiance. Let's take a look inside the monastery of Adbisha. Upon entering the monastery, I immediately get goosebumps. This monastery is home to many saints, hermits, from all over the world.
It'd be awesome.
Ancient paintings, writings, and drawings are well preserved here. Weekly masses still take place in the church here today. This is a black slab from the roof of the cave. It has a painting on it, which looks familiar. Does it remind you of anything? To me, it looks like the beginning of the seed, like cedar, seed of life symbol. It also looks like the cross-section of a pomegranate fruit. Could this be where they got the real Star of David from? From the bottom of a ripe pomegranate fruit?
Huh.
And here is the actual tomb of the giant bones. Notice the tiny and only entrance. This was so that he could defend himself from trespassers. In the valley of Adbisha, grandparents and ancestors used to grow fruit and vegetables for 60 plus years before establishing a home in Hasrun. The valley is called Adbisha, and in Arabic Catholic Mass, we sing this as an opening hymn. and I am pretty sure he originated from this monastery. This is the day's harvest from my farm in the weather, fruits of thy labor in Adnubir. Can you see how the veins in the leaves are like the lines on our skin, like on my hand here?
Now, what's interesting too is the similarity between words that we have in the area. For example, a town across from Hazrun is called Eden, Ehen-D-E-N, which phonetically is the same as Eden, E-D-E-N, as in the Garden of Eden. Now, although it appears from the brilliant research of the God culture in studying the Book of Jubilees that the garden is in the land of Ophir, which is modern-day Philippines, the connection is still as profound as the giant cedar is to the tree of life. And in the same general area, Ophir shows up on the map as well. Please check out the God Cultures channel on YouTube for more information on this. I'll leave a link below. Now we have another phonetically similar word in Kadisha. Kadisha, K-A-D-I-S-H-A, which is very close to Kadash, K-A-D-O-S-H, as in night Kadash, the 30th degree in Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. The term Kadash is derived from the Hebrew word which means holy or consecrated. So night Kadash would be holy night. They consider the night holy, where Lucifer reigns. Knights Templar for Templars of the Night as well. Night Kadash's abbreviation is KK. KK in numerology is 22. 22 is the number of Christ, of his journey here on earth, usurped by the Luciferians, making Christ Lucifer in the tarot. The Masons followed the Gnostic writings of the Kabbalah. Night Kadash, Night Kabbalah.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job on this one.
Kadash sounds like it might be related to the Kardashians.
Kardashian.
KK, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian.
Dude, they're all demons.
KKs. This is probably why
they're
these
demons.
Creatures are pushed into this every day as a symbol for the KK.
Dude, you look at Hollywood, it's a, oh my god.
Transsexual and androgynous, like the Freemasons coveted.
Think about it, like, we already have demons here controlling us and we're worshiping them. Oh man, it's just so disturbing. And it's what hurts the most though is Christians that just won't even try to open their eyes. So I heard this pastor got fired from his church because he attended a flat earth conference. He didn't come to church and say anything about the flat earth. He went to a flat earth conference and the church freaking fired him. Think of that. I mean, that would, you know, so you're telling me you take the word of, you know, scientists that get paid, your government, this, that, and other thing. You take the word of that and you call yourself a damn Christian, but you don't take God at his word. And there are so many Christians that will not take God at his word. And it's like, do you believe in God then? And like, well, of course I believe in God. I'm a Christian. Yes, I love Jesus Christ. This, that, and the other thing. And you're like, well, God literally tells you the earth is flat. God literally says this. This is God's word. And you don't believe it? No. And it's just like, oh my God. Oh, help me. Help me, Jesus.
Khloe Kim Courtney, or KKK.
Oh, shit.
11 plus 11 plus 11 equals
33.
And we can't help but notice that KKK are the initials of the Ku Klux Klan.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
Albert Pike, the head Mason and writer of Morals and Dogma. From the chapter of Night Kadash, the ghosts of the dead Templars haunt the Vatican and disturb the slumbers of the paralyzed papacy, which, dreading the dead, shriek out its excommunications and impotent anathemas against the living. It is a declaration of war and was needed to arouse apathy and inertness to action. It at length became a menace for the church and society when a rich and dissolute order, initiated in the mysterious doctrines of the Kabbalah, seems disposed to turn against legitimate authority, the conservative principle of hierarchy, and threaten the entire world with an immense revolution. The Templars, whose history is so imperfectly known, were those terrible conspirators. This rebuilding, formerly predicted by the Judaizing mystics of earlier ages, had become the secret dream of the patriarchs of the Orient. The Temple of Solomon, rebuilt,
Yeah,
and
no, I knew
consecrated
that,
to the
but yeah,
Catholic worship,
it was him.
would become, in effect, the metropolis of the universe. The East would prevail over the West, and the patriarchs of Constantinople would possess themselves of the papal power. Trumpets.
Okay. I'm not. Oh God, that took me a minute to put together, and nobody was really talking about it. I'm sure maybe in some circles, who the hell knows, but nobody even laughed about it or even said anything. And I remember when it clicked to me, and I'd say, I'm like, so nobody thinks it's kind of weird that our president, vice president, Trump Pence. No, nobody thinks that's crazy, and everyone, you're crazy. No way, da da da. And people will tell you you're crazy, but why is it that 4 out of 10 people think that we live in the end times, one way or another, whether they're Christians or not? You know, that's the funny thing, and it's like, if you believe that, why is it such a stretch to start, putting everything else together? If you think you live in the end days, how come you don't think there would be signs? I don't know, people.
Notice they're both wearing blue
I know,
ties.
we were all asleep before too.
Blue ties for Israel. Blue is the color
Damn
of
it, Trump.
Lucifer. And they make sure to have the Christmas tree that looks like a cedar on Trump's right.
Yeah, okay.
Behind Trump, it looks like a mountain landscape with little cedars peeking over his left shoulder. On the left behind Pence, we have the flag in a pyramid shape. The stars are laying sideways, so they have the appearance of pentagrams with the 2 points at the top of each.
It does.
And it's
We're the
top
puppets.
eagle or phoenix, symbol of the Masons. It's kind of like their version of the tree behind Pence. Man-made as opposed to God-made.
Another random thought about pagan Christmas is that it is centered around trees and decorating them in materialistic rubbish, while hiding the true essence of trees and the true nature, power, and purpose of them in our world.
It's been so hard. Yes, I just learned this last year, and it was just before Christmas. So I'm sure it'll be hard again this year, because it's like, how do you not put up the freaking Christmas tree for the damn kids? At least we have a fake one. But, how do you not put that up, and then at the same time you're sitting there knowing what you know, and you're like, I know this is wrong, and this is actually fucking paganism, because we all know Christianity got changed when freaking Constantine took Christianity as the freaking main religion of Rome, and to make everything meld together and go together and get everybody to get along, they had to take from the old pagan gods and Christianity and mold it together. So that's what a lot of people don't even get, even though it's common knowledge. People still don't see it, even though they've heard the story.
The tree with the star on top, or the northern star, is a representation of our old world. The decorations are meant to be the fruit, and the gifts under the tree are meant to be the blessings of life, to provide food and shelter for all life on earth. The trees don't grow fruit for itself to consume. Every single aspect of a tree, from the roots to the bark, to the vines and the leaves,
is for us.
Down to the fruit, all hold deep, sacred and special healing powers for the human body and the entire environment that the tree is surrounded in.
I totally agree. Many say it's a pagan symbol and make it bad. that it was usurped and made that way. Originally was a symbol of our blessings. However, one thing people should be aware of, we should use live trees. Trees with their roots intact, not cut trees. Cut trees represent the giant trees that they cut. So by having cut trees in our homes at Christmas,
Oh,
has
shit.
us unwittingly giving our blessings to
Oh,
the torrid
shit.
hat. Live trees,
No way.
trees that we should
Think of
plant
that.
after Christmas. Add beautiful trees to our plane instead of subtracting them from it. Like the forest of Lebanon, which only covers 13% of the land in present day.
There are 41 mentions of trees in the Book of Enoch. Here's one of the more fascinating ones. This is from the Book of Enoch, chapter 32. And after these fragrant odors, as I looked towards the north over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of choice nard and fragrant trees, and cinnamon and pepper. And thence I went over the summits of all the mountains far towards the east of the earth, and passed above the Erythraean Sea and went far from it, and passed over the angel Zotiel, and I came to the garden of righteousness. And from afar off, trees were numerous. These trees, and great 2 trees, were there, very great, beautiful, and glorious, and magnificent, and the tree of knowledge, whose holy fruit they eat, and know great wisdom. That tree is in height like the fir, and its leaves are like those of the carob tree, and its fruit is like the clusters of the vine, very beautiful, and the fragrance of the tree penetrates afar. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree, and how attractive is its look? Then Raphael, the holy angel, who was with me, answered me and said, this is the tree of wisdom, of which thy father and old in years, and thy aged mother, who were before thee, have eaten, and they learnt wisdom, and their eyes were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven out of the garden.
Notice how similar the tree looks to the tower card in the tarot deck, at the bottom of which looks like a tree. Notice the base is among the clouds, just like El Arez looks like this base and is among the clouds. With Trump still in mind, look at the next picture. It's Trump Tower. Trump Tower is the Tower of Babel,
Uh-oh.
replacing the Tree of Life.
What?
Man-made
Ruh-roh.
tower as opposed to cedars. S-E-E-D-U-R-S.
No, Trump, no.
God's towers. Let's continue with the Kadash quote. Sword and trowel, the Templars' insignia, concealed themselves as brethren masons. The trowel of the Templars is quadruple, and the triangular plates of it are arranged in the form of a cross, making the Kabbalistic pentacle known by the name of the Cross of the East. Thus, the Order of the Knights of the Temple was at its very origin devoted to the cause of opposition to the tiara of Rome and the crown of kings, and the apostate of Kabbalistic Gnosticism was vested in its chiefs. So the cross of the East is a symbol of Kabbalistic Gnosticism. Notice Crowley's cross of the East to his right. And what is written next to it? Baphomet. Remember that word, it will come up again shortly. And here, with the sovereign commander of the Masons with his cross of the East on his fez. Notice the tint of this photo? It is purple, Phoenician purple. We continue. To acquire influence and wealth, then to intrigue.
No, I don't think it's a Tower of Babel
and
either.
indeed
I
to
just,
fight,
I think
to
it's funny.
establish the Johannite or Gnostic and Kabbalistic dogma, where the object and means proposed to the initiated brethren. Papacy and the rival monarchies, they said to them, all sold and bought in these days became corrupt, and tomorrow, perhaps, will destroy each other.
all that will become the heritage of the temple. The world will soon come to us for its sovereigns and pontiffs. We shall constitute the equilibrium of the universe and be rulers over the masters of the world. Did you catch that? And they will be rulers over the masters of the world. The Templars, like all other secret orders and associations, had two doctrines, one concealed and reserved for the masters, which was Johannism, the other public, which was Roman Catholic.
Jehovism.
Thus, they deceived the adversaries whom they sought to supplant. Hence, Freemasonry, vulgarly imagined to have begun with the Dionysian architects or the German stoneworkers, adopted St. John the Evangelist as one of its patrons, associating with him in order not to arouse the suspicions of Rome, St. John the Baptist, and thus covertly proclaiming itself the child of the Kabbalah and Essenism together. And wherever in the higher degrees the two colors, white and black, are in juxtaposition, the two principles of Zoroastrian manes are alluded to. It is absurd to suppose that men in intellect adored a monstrous idol called Baphomet, or recognized Mahomet as an inspired prophet. The symbols of the wise always become the idols of the ignorant multitude. Remember Crowley's Baphomet? And we see how the cross of the East represents Kabbalistic Gnosticism. And we see here also how the Masons covertly worship John the Baptist and try to associate him with the Kabbalah and Essenism. Here is a Masonic-inspired version of John the Baptist, with him doing the as above, so below. Notice 1 foot up, 1 foot down, sitting on a throne with a scepter in his hand, and naked except for a cloth draped over his privates, just like in this next picture, which looks eerily similar to the statue of Mason George Washington doing the same pose and dressed the same way, which looks eerily similar to their Baphomet doing the same pose and dressed the same way. So we can see just from the one painting of John the Baptist that they are usurping him, using him to promote Gnosticism. Remember, this is from Night Kadash, straight from Morals and Dogma, straight from the Mason's own writings. And Donald Trump is a Mason. I'll leave a link to his appearance on the Jimmy Fallon show, where he has to go through his humiliation ritual to move up in Freemasonry. And you'll notice he holds up his thumbs and index fingers, forming 2 L's. L in numerology is 3, so holding 2 up, he's making the 33 of Masonry. So they tell us they worship John the Baptist, and what's interesting is that John the Baptist lived in Qumran. In further reading in Night Kadash, the legend of Osiris was revised and adopted to symbolize the destruction of the order and the resurrection of Kurum, slain in the body of the temple of Kurum Abba, the master as the martyr, or fidelity of obligation of truth and consequence, prophesies the restoration to life of the married association. So they associate Kurum with Osiris, and we notice how phonetically similar Qumran is to Kurum. We are in the land of the Phoenicians, no less.
Crowley was weird. Killed his
The
son.
scrolls were found in caves in Qumran. The Essenes did not live in Qumran. They lived above En-Gedi on the southwest shore of the Dead Sea, with 5 villages in between. There were no Gnostic texts found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Essenes were Gnostics, as we just read straight from the Masons' writings. They were not even mentioned in the Bible. The Gnostic texts were found in Alexandria, Egypt, nowhere near Qumran. And notice how similar the place where the scrolls were found are to a modern day cedar tree's base.
Pretty close. Oh yeah. No, that it is funny though, but like, but you see how many of the most powerful people in the world worship that guy. It's crazy. Ah. Sorry about that. Goodness. All right, let's see. What do we got? Oh, this is part 2.
Change starts with a single step.
One day, I'm going to help families. One day, I'm going.
Oh no, it's gonna freeze up on me. It's gonna freeze up on me.
Greetings. Welcome back to the Ancient Tree Research Project. This is part 2 for the Giant Cedars of Lebanon. If you have not watched part 1, please do so when you can. Then this video will make a little bit more sense. My name is ODD, and I am one out of a growing population of people that believe that many of the buttes and mesas that we see used to actually be giant trees, but now they are just remnants of what they once were. You can find these ancient tree stumps all over the earth. We have Ben Bulben in Ireland.
Whoa. Whoa.
Jugurtha Tableland in Tunisia.
Damn.
Mount Connor in Australia.
Okay, so you
also known as the Crimson Plateau.
So we all know that giants are different sizes. So one thing that makes me like think about it. If you're a guy with a saw or an axe and you're standing up against a tree, you're going to cut it from where you're going to cut it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to build a platform up to cut it up there. You're going to freaking cut it where you stand as you would swing an axe or use a saw. So think about how big these damn giants were that cut these things down. I mean, what is that, 100 feet up? So, you know, if you're cutting, you think about what's comfortable to cut when you're cutting down a tree. It's kind of about from your knee to your belly. So I kind of think that it is easier to explain the size of what these giants would be for, you know, how tall some of these mountains are with tops like this anyways.
So Mount Garfield here in Colorado, where I live, which is the New World Order headquarters for North America. Check out a video called The Colorado Conspiracy for more on that. Next, we have the Superstition Mountains in Arizona.
Yeah, that bitch got busted off. That was with an axe, not a saw.
Table Mountain in South Africa.
We'll look at the side part
Los
too.
Oroganos in the Canary Islands. This one has basalt columns like the Devil's Tower.
Sorry, guys.
And in Venezuela, there are many. Cucanan Tepuy.
They're freaking everywhere.
Mount Roraima.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay, so this is what's so funny too. Okay.
Atana Mountain.
This is what's so... People know that, you know, mountains, water flows out of mountains. You know, there are a lot of mountains that water. I mean, we know sea level, we know this. And these waterfalls are somehow being made coming up out of a mountain. Imagine a tree, it sucks up the water, all that. Well, what if that one little perfect part, eroded out where it got the best water and it followed that up? I mean, that's what makes more sense than geology made it so there's water coming out of a mountain that's 400 feet, tall.
Name a couple. And what's really cool about Cerro Atana is that the native people here, the Piaroa, have a rich oral tradition for their mythology, and that includes Cerro Atana as once being the tree of life.
Makes more sense than what they
Here
tell
on the
us.
wiki for Cerro Atana, we read, for the Piaroa Indians, the original inhabitants of the area, Atana is a sacred mountain. It is Kueme Yoho, the stump of the sacred tree of the fruits of the world. Piaroan mythology tells how the treetop went as high as the infinite, and its branches were full of fruits which fell and gave life to the Amazon. One day, Wahari and his nephew, which had been transformed into a lapa, cut down the tree to get all the fruits at once. Speaking of cutting down trees, chapter 66 in the Book of Enoch explains who cut these giants down. In those days, the word of God came to me and said, Noah, behold, thy lot has ascended up to me, a lot void of crime, a lot beloved and upright. Now then shall the angels labor at the trees. But when they proceed to this, I will put my hand upon it and preserve it. The seed of life shall arise from it, and a change shall take place, that the dry land may not be left empty. I will establish thy seed before me forever and ever, and the seed of those who dwell with thee on the surface of the earth. It shall be blessed and multiplied in the presence of the earth, in the name of the Lord. Specifically, angels labored at the trees translates to Nephilim cut down the trees. And then God stepped in to preserve the seed, which is why we still have trees. Granted, they are no longer the humongous size that they once were. Also, another interesting thing that I found comes from a book called Patriarchs and Prophets by Ellen G. White. In chapter 7, The Flood, it says this: in the days of Noah, a double curse was resting upon the earth in consequence of Adam's transgression and of the murder committed by Cain. Yet this had not greatly changed the face of nature. There were evident tokens of decay, but the earth was still rich and beautiful in the gifts of God's providence. The hills were crowned with majestic trees, supporting the fruit-laden branches of the vine. No, I'm just kidding. The vast garden-like plains were clothed with verdure and sweet with the fragrance of 1,000 flowers. The fruits of the earth were in great variety and almost without limit. Yummy. The trees far surpassed in size, beauty, and perfect proportion any now to be found. Their wood was of fine grain and hard substance, closely resembling stone, and hardly less enduring. Gold, silver, and precious stones existed in abundance. So you hear that?
Yeah,
the trees far surpassed in size,
I've heard about
and perfect proportion.
Denver Airport, of course, all the shit. I'll check it out.
That the trees were way bigger back then. Their wood was of fine grain and hard substance, closely resembling stone. Oh, hey, there's Rosette. What's up, Rosette?
Mahalo, ODD. Now, part of Shadi's trip to Lebanon was sitting with monks and hermits and learning a lot about the history of the land and cultures, from Islam to Christianity, right down to the secrets of Freemasonry. He was able to view 2 Masonic books, one blue and one red.
Blue represents space, red represents time. Red is the compass, or come to pass, representing the flow of time. It makes the circles and circles roll like time flows. Blue represents space, or the square, that which is stable and can be measured by a ruler. The York Rite of Masonry seems to control space, the Scottish Rite, the time and the flow of blood, meaning the people through controlling information like media, schools, and control the flood of blood also through alchemy with drugs, food additives, chemtrailing, fluorides, vaccines, etc. The Knights Templar wore a red cross because they represent the Knights of the Temp, or time, Plars, or Pillars, or Jachin and Boaz. Temp is time, P-L-A-R-S is pillars, or the time pillars, the Templars. They are the keepers of the time, or the knowledge collected through the time of man. They are the priests that rule over the knowledge. They control the churches, religions, law, science, media, medicines, and transportation. The blue cross of the Templars are the space keepers. They deal with commerce, trade, money, and regional influences like countries. They are the monarchs. They are the rulers, or that which measure and decides the value. They are the rulers that maintain the status quo. They are the rule keepers. The law, T-H-E-L-A-W, or switch the letters around and have W-E-A-L-T-H, or wealth. Those things outside of time but possessed by time. The blue bloods, the men in blue, or the police, the military, the protectors of the space that the Masons seem to believe they somehow own through their creation of a completely false paradigm of information and force used to enslave the cowan and profane. Yeah, right. This also relates to the insurance company called the Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and those who deal with the emergencies or time-related issues are the Blue Cross. The red crosses we see on ambulances and such are because time is of the essence in a hospital or ambulance. Red Cross takes the blood through donation, regulates emergencies, and are out in the active physical environment dealing with people, drugs, vaccines, and medicines or alchemy. The Blue Cross regulates space-related issues such as insurance to cover all space as it might be needed and issues dealing with money.
Notice this one is blue. Now listen to what is written in Night Kadash, the same chapter we recited in part 1 about the blue degrees. The blue degrees are but the outer court or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine that he understands them. Their true explication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of masonry. The whole body of the royal and sacerdotal art was hidden so carefully centuries since in the high degrees as that is even yet impossible to solve many of the enigmas which they contain. It is well enough for the mass of those called Masons to imagine that all is contained in the blue degrees, and whose attempts to undeceive them will labor in vain, and without any true reward violate his obligations as an adept. So the blue book represents the outer portico of the temple, while the red book represents the inner portico. The initiate learns of the outer portico, while the master mason knows the inner portico, the true secrets. Like Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, which is a red book, right? So he's a master mason. He knows the inner portico. Pike's great work, his magnum opus, his red book. Carl Jung wrote a book he called The Red Book, and that is his book of enlightenment, going through the colors of alchemy: black, white, yellow, red, in that order. Jung started with his black book. Now, is the red book the Masons' book of enlightenment? Their book of alchemy? From the Wiki, the magnum opus, Alchemy, it originally had 4 stages: Negrito, a blackening melanosis; Albedo, a whitening or leucosis, citrinitas, a yellowing or xanosis, rubedo, a reddening, purpling or iosis. Notice purpling, like the Phoenician purple. So the Red Book was Jung's magnum opus, his great work. The giant cedar shows up in the red Masonic book written in Arabic, the language of Lebanon. So let's look at this picture in the red Masonic book written by Antoine Ausse, pronounced Ausse, an Arabic surname that Shadi got to look at. Now you'll say that's not a cedar, but I beg to differ. Let's examine more closely. Now credit to Cracker for spotting what this tree really is. The leaves of the tree coming out of the king while he is dreaming is a mimosa. Mimosa is the tree that DMT is derived from. DMT, code for dream time, which is exactly what you do when you smoke DMT. You basically have the most intense, vivid dream while you are awake. And in Carl Jung's Red Book, he speaks on dreams and the mind and how we are all connected through group consciousness. Did he take DMT?
Acacia and mimosa tree species are very closely related. They both contain extractable DMT through different methods. The acacia acts more as an active ingredient to ayahuasca brew. The ayahuasca is the female energy, or the MAOI. Notice the reference to MOAI, like the statues on Easter Island, or the Moai, which many of the statues look to be female and have breasts. And the chacruna leaf is the male energy part of the ayahuasca brew containing the active DMT. This means that the ayahuasca brew can be produced regionally depending on the plant species available. And here's how it will work. The ayahuasca vine can easily be replaced with Syrian rue seed extract, which is made by boiling the seeds in acidic liquid or lemon juice or vinegar. The DMT could be extracted through similar methods from the acacia or the mimosa tree. Several species of acacia tree are common to the Middle East. Acacia is considered sacred in those lands, it seems.
Wait, that's the same
Shadi
type of
would
tree
know
that
more
grew
about
in
this
Dave's
since
house.
he actually lives
On the
there
right.
and knows the traditions
It looks like it
truthfully and
almost.
without biased information.
It looks like
The
it.
picture's caption in Arabic reads, "The head will reach the sky like Babel Tower. No king can defeat it." Well, when you are on DMT, the DMT is in control, not you. So no king could defeat it. It will take you to the sky, to dreamland, to another dimension.
No thanks.
The verses in 1 Corinthians 1 relate to this. The foolishness of God are those things which are undefined. Containing all possibility, it is greater than that which is defined. Its potential is greater. When you do DMT, you see things that language is not capable of replicating in a reasonable way. That's why people are at a loss for words when they do it, because no words are capable of describing it. Those undefined tachyon waveforms are uncollapsed quantum potential existing outside of the limitations of time, space, and matter. What we experience are the possibilities we see changing as a flow of undefined information in a realm without limitation when we are in the DMT state. You can see how these verses speak of this, that no flesh shall glory in his presence. Ego is not something you want to cling to when you're in a DMT state, nor are those things that are defined by authority of man. Since this realm is one that is not limited by time, space, and matter, no king can rule over it. Rulers define, and that is something that no ruler could measure, define.
Can you imagine if they put that in the drinking water and
sufficiently.
everybody just lost
And
it?
this is 1 Corinthians 1, verse 25.
because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For ye see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble, are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, or think they're mighty. And the base things of the world and the things which are despised hath God chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence.
We discussed this, ODD, Shoddy, Cracker, and I, how there is
Yeah,
a
pretty
concerted
much.
effort to stigmatize all drugs as bad. Just say no to drugs is the common slogan. But not all are bad. Yes, PCP is bad. Yes, heroin is bad. Xanax, uppers, downers, etc. But DMT is a natural element found in all life. It has many positive applications, from breaking people's addictions to having mind-blowing epiphanies about how the world truly is.
Yeah, and it still puts you in a realm where demons can
From
attack
Matthew
you.
6:22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Christ is talking about the pineal gland here. From an article by the Event Chronicle, the pineal gland develops from the roof of the encephalon, a section in your brain. Although it looks like a pine cone, when cut open it is very similar to an eye. Even more fascinating is that the interior of the pineal gland actually has retinal tissue composed of rods and cones inside its interior lining, which are wired into the visual cortex in the brain. The photoreceptors of the retina strongly resemble the cells of the pineal gland. It even has vitreous fluid in it like an eye does, and it still functions as a light receptor in some vertebrates. In many cultures, it is spiritually referred to as the third eye, and science seems to agree. Besides regulating sleep patterns and sexual development, many researchers believe that it has the ability to connect us to other dimensions, like the dream world, spiritual realms, such as deep meditation and astral travel, and during near-death experiences through the release of DMT. Dimethyltryptamine is a psychedelic compound of the tryptamine family. It occurs naturally in trace amounts in mammals, where it functions as a neurotransmitter and is also produced in humans. However, its purpose in the brain remains in debate.
I
French
know,
philosopher
but
and
she'll be done
mathematician
hopefully
René
soon. I was
Descartes,
thinking the same thing.
dedicating much time to the study of the pineal gland, called it the principal seat of the soul. He believed it to be the point of connection between the intellect and the body. It appears that the gland is the only section of the brain to exist as a single part rather than one half of a pair. The gland is thought to be highly active during dreaming, meditation, and spiritual experiences. Did you get that? Single part. Let thine eye be single, and the whole body shall be full of light.
There we go.
Matthew 6:22. He is talking about the pineal gland, which is represented by the pine cone and is in the courtyard of the Vatican. They obviously know its importance. So by calcifying ours with fluoride, ours will not become single. Notice the two peacocks here. Peacocks have the all-seeing eye represented in their feathers. In addition, they have experienced DMT and share it with us. Truth in plain sight. Once again, giant trees, they hide DMT. For example, how do you think cartoons first came into our existence? We don't see anything in our reality, in our day-to-day lives, that even remotely look like a cartoon. So how did the first cartoon come about? Well, I can tell you it most likely came about by a DMT experience. Because in there, that is the only place you actually experience a cartoon world.
Whoa.
And they hide the experience in film as well. Take The Matrix, for instance.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye,
says Cypher. How do you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? Says Neo. It makes you feel cold. You hear strange noises. And then you're in another state of existence. Back to the Masonic drawing, we notice there is a ring
There we go.
around the tree.
But that was pretty. I get where she was going with all of it now.
Russia, there are supposedly mysterious ringing cedars, ancient trees that over the course of 550 years had reportedly accumulated so much energy through their pine needles, antenna-like leaves, that they had begun to audibly ring or vibrate.
Nice.
You can do experiments where you can measure the ohms in a tree, and they do emit electrical
It's almost
current.
breathing. It's crazy.
The ringing is also a specific feature of a DMT trip. You hear loud ringing right at the start. The closest thing people relate it to are the Tibetan singing bowls.
Yeah, what
Did
time
the
is it
Tibetan
here?
monks do
It's
DMT?
1:55 here.
What is
Thanks
also
for being here,
remarkable is
guys.
the connection between Australia and Lebanon. Did we mention yet that Shadi lives in Australia but is
That's
from
you, Eric.
Lebanon? We have the DMT from Lebanon, and we have the dream time of the Aborigines. The Ab, God, origins from Australia. Dream time, DREAMTIME.
Oh no, I'm not done.
So we have DMT
I'm just gonna let it
encoded
go.
in the word dream time. And in Aborigines, we have Ab, which is another word for God,
Oh, we're at least
and
finishing this video.
Origines or origins, God's original people. The Masons know the importance of Ab. They use it in their most infamous saying, Ordo Ab Chaos, which they say means order out of chaos. But have you ever looked closely at this verse? That message is for the profane. This is what I believe is the message for the Adams. Ordo Ab Chaos should be written pyramid style. So the AB would be at the capstone, flanked by
They didn't.
Ordo
Well,
on the
hopefully they
right
don't.
and Chaos on the left. Now remember, when we say on the right, the view is
They like kicking
always
people
from the
off.
object facing outwards. So Ordo would come first when we read this phrase. Ordo is order. It is what you have when you follow the right hand path. It is on the right. Chaos is on the left for the left hand path, the path of chaos and destruction. Now both Ordo and Chaos have 4 letters each and are on the same level. So for the Masons, they see the 2 states as equal. One represents Christ, Ordo, and one represents Lucifer, Chaos. The Ab at the top is the prime creator. To them, he is both male and female, represented by the A for alpha and the B for beta, like Adam, male, and Eve, female. So they're androgynous God at the top. Read the writings of Manly P. Hall, honorary 33rd degree Mason, for more on this. Notice 16 stars on the right, 16 stars on the left. Together equal 32, with the 33rd star as the capstone.
Yeah, on the top.
16's digital root is 7. 1 plus 6 equals 7. So you have the 77 code in the stars. 77 is code for Lucifer and Satan. Lucifer is represented by the white pope, and Satan is represented by the black pope. They're two-headed Janus god, depicted here in the double-headed eagle. The Templar cross over the crown shows they are in control of the crown, both temporal and spiritual power. They hold both keys to this world. God is my right, written in Latin below, meaning they believe it is their right, their might, to become like gods. That is the whole goal of the great work, to usurp God and become gods in their own right. It is also a play on the word right, because right in God is my right is implying Christ. Christ is God's right-hand man. So they use the alternate meaning of right to usurp Christ.
If you take a closer look at Devil's Tower, you will notice it's been stripped of its external bark. For centuries, Aboriginal, African, and native Indians used trees as well as plants to make medicine using bark, branches, and leaves to cure all their sicknesses. Things like adjusting their body temperature to cold were essential, as clothing wasn't a thing. Just as sacred as marijuana is on healing cancers and disease, every plant and tree on earth has the potential to heal the human body. Like all natural life forms, people and plants all start off in darkness, whether it's in the soil or in the womb. With the right water, nutrients, sunlight, and chemistry, they all become their own beings or creators. So where does the human body get the chemical or the ingredients from? From the sun, the moon, and the stars. In the Bible, it says, "The stars, let them be for signs and seasons." The stars and their corresponding elements are found on the periodic chart. This is why certain plants and animals are found in one area of the world, and other species are found elsewhere. The environment itself is a natural process through light, sound, vibration, and communication, which creates an ecosystem. This is known as sonoluminescence, the voices of the heavens. These stars and chemical reactions are also found within the functions of the human body through the firmament that we call our skin. The skin is the largest organ of the human body. It absorbs everything. Remember, you are what you eat. When a mother is pregnant carrying her baby, the motion of the skies, the alignment of the stars, the temperature of the moon and the earth and the sun all play a major role in developing the human body and soul.
Wow.
These are known as the 12 tribes of Israel in the Bible. Israel meaning Isis, Ra, and El. These are also our 12 zodiac signs or horoscopes. The stars are for signs and seasons. While your parents' DNA play the physical role to a certain extent, it's just like baking a cake. Adding ingredients actually comes from the elements of the stars above. Is the furnace, and the end result is the firmament, the armor of God. Everything from a laugh, smile, or tear has as much chemistry to it as making a coffee. The process of deoxidization caused by the flood in Genesis created a stone age, a new age of material, like a caveman discovering fire. The people who learned to master the alchemy or the stars ended up writing our history. Enter the Freemasons. For example, DMT is made of branches and plays a major role in Masonic rituals. Also, in the construction of Tower of Babel, they had to use a furnace to make bricks.
Now we know the Masons love to hide truth in plain sight, and they didn't fail us when it comes to the mimosa. Look here, in Horton Hears a Who. A mimosa flower. And here, the teacher is a mimosa flower. The mimosa teaching us. Teaching us. Did Dr. Seuss know? I would imagine so. I'm sure he smoked DMT. Dr. Seuss also wrote The Lorax. And look what it has in common with Horton Hears a Who. Mimosa flowers. They made a cartoon movie out of this book as well. I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
Yeah,
The
that's
tale of when the giant trees were cut until none were left, like today, with no giant trees. The lore, folklore, the story of the axe. And tell me those aren't mimosa flowers. Those are so mimosa flowers right there.
Whoa.
And the bears and the Lorax symbolize the creatures that people see when they smoke DMT. This is a full-on DMT experience in this picture. Now, in that red Masonic book, it had the tree of life growing on the bed of the king, and it looked like a mimosa tree. So our next question should be, do we have any connections with the mimosa tree in Lebanon? Followed by, was the tree of life in the center a mimosa tree, a DMT tree? So let's look. And they grow here in Hawaii like weeds.
I don't know if I've seen that one. It sounds familiar. How's it going?
So I did some searching and found that the mimosa tree is called the sunt or sunt tree in the region of Phoenicia and is the shittim wood in the Bible.
Yeah, they do really
So I
good
did
stuff.
find it in the area of Lebanon and Israel. And that it grows prolifically on the east bank of the Dead Sea, with Qumran just across on the west bank. Remember Qumran? The location of the Dead Sea Scrolls in a cave that looks like a giant tree cut? So the acacia wood is the mimosa wood. And I looked to see if the cedar is connected to the acacia and if there is a genus that is mimosa. And look what I found. There is. So does this mean that the ringing cedars, the giant cedars cut, were mimosa cedars and not the traditional cedars depicted in the Lebanese flag?
Huh.
And guess what the national flower of Australia is? The golden wattle, or cedar. The golden wattle with mimosa flowers in yellow. Notice how it looks just like a yellow version of the mimosa.
Oh, I'm glad you like that.
The
Yeah.
leaves look like the mimosa.
I actually was hoping, I'm like, you know what? I can just put this up, and if somebody wants an hour-long bedtime story for their kid, think about that. You're set.
And that's why the thistle
I'm glad you liked it.
is the official flower for Scotland. Because it looks
He just,
like
you know, the crazy
mimosa.
thing is, he had just put it up because, you know, he's got hella freaking subs. And it only, when I looked at it, it only been seen like 50 times. I looked at the comments. So he had just dropped it within an hour or so, and I just recorded it and threw it on.
As well, although it is not mimicking mimosa. Truth hidden in plain sight. They worship this plant and make it their national flowers. I found this interesting. In the Philippines, it lists the acacia,
Oh, that sucks.
A-K-A-S-Y-A.
I just used it, recorded it off another phone.
It's a medicinal plant. Acacia is phonetically the same as acacia, A-C-A-C-I-A. Notice too, acacia looks very similar to ayahuasca, A-Y-A-H-U-A-S-C-A. Ayahuasca would be a form of DMT, but with added ingredients to extend the experience. Notice mimosa on the list as well, Mimosa saman. So we can see here the acacia, the acacia, ayahuasca, DMT, and mimosa are all connected. And it's listed under medicinal plant, right? So it actually helps people. There is even a chocolate mimosa. Now tell me that ain't pretty. Wow. And the Japanese have a bonsai version.
No way. Got my little drug factory right here.
Also, I did a search on DMT and Masons.
Oh.
And it looks like the higher degrees, remember the higher degrees, the red book, use DMT in their ceremonies. From the Reality Sandwich article, in their daring book, Mushrooms, Myth, and Mithras, author Ruck, Hoffman, and Seldrin made a bold attempt to interpret the founding myth of Freemasonry in an ethnobotanical context, seeing in the allegory of
once it
Grandmaster
drops,
Hiram
you can see the
Abiff's
video before.
raising a possible allusion to a ritualized
Oh, never mind,
harvest
you're not
of
talking to me.
acacia root. The murdered body of Hiram Abiff, a master mason and master of works on Solomon's temple, was raised from his resting place beneath an acacia sprig, which marked the spot to those who would be sent by King Solomon to search. After the interred corpse of Hiram was found, Solomon himself went to the site to recover the body. Feeling beneath the ground at the site of the acacia, the king felt Hiram's hand. In the process of recovering his corpse, he first used the grip of the entered apprentice, then that of the fellow craft, but twice felt the skin slipping off Hiram's hand.
Oh.
Finally, Solomon used the grip of the master mason to raise the corpse. In the ethnobotanical context, we feel that this myth is a description of a ritualized acacia harvest. We note that the subterranean root bark of acacia and mimosa species are known to contain high levels of dimethyltryptamine, an entheogen which is strongly psychoactive when extracted and inhaled, and which is easily combined with other sacred entheogenic plants and consumed as a potion. Now let's go back to our image of the king lying in the bed with the tree upon it from the red Masonic book. Remember, the red book is a great work, a book of occulted knowledge. And so makes sense the author would include dream interpretations from the Bible, from the book of Daniel. We know it's in reference to Daniel because the picture looks so similar to this 15th century painting from France of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a tree. It speaks of a giant tree. Daniel 4. These are the visions I saw while lying in bed. I looked, and therefore before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it, the wild animals found shelter, and the birds lived in its branches. From every creature was fed.
Wow.
In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a Holy One, a messenger, coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, "Cut down the tree and trim off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from its branches. But let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field." Is this El Erez, the giant cedar of Lebanon, symbolic of the tree of life at the center of our world? Notice all the animals lived in the giant tree. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him. Does that mean we forgot? We're just remembering now? The decision is announced by messengers. The holy ones declare the verdict, so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes, and sets over them the lowliest of people. Daniel interprets the dream. Your Majesty, you are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to distant parts of the earth. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, Your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue. Your kingdom will be restored by doing what is right and renouncing your wickedness. Crowley, Aleister Crowley, was known as the wickedest man alive. What does that make his followers? Followers of the left-hand path. Will they renounce their wickedness? Do what is right. And there is another peacock in the tree.
Genesis 4. Cain and Abel. Where did Cain bury Abel? Looking at Baalbek and the following regions from a Google Maps satellite, it looks like a well-dug up grave. It also looks like Baalbek might be the chest or the skull. You can easily make out the ribcage and a full spine with legs. The old skeleton bones even make up the roads. Baalbek is located on the opposite side of the Valley of the Holy Saints and close to the Syrian border. The only thing separating the Wadi an-Nubin and Baalbek is the giant mountain, or El Erez, which we are now learning used to be a giant tree. Like the Bible says, Cain worked in the soil while Abel worked the sheep. When looking at an aerial view of the Baalbek temple, it looks like a man walking his sheep. So when and why was it all done? The Maronite Christians, who for generations deemed themselves custodians of the site, told legends of the giants who had built the colossal platform. According to an Arabic manuscript found at Baalbek, Nimrod sent giants to rebuild it after the flood, whilst another tale relates that Nimrod rebelled against his god and built the Tower of Babel. Other legends associate Baalbek with the biblical figure of Cain, the son of Adam, claiming that he built it as a refuge after his god Yahweh had cursed him. According to the Maronite Patriarch of Lebanon, Estefan Dwaihi, tradition states that the fortress of Baalbek is the most ancient building in the world. Cain, the son of Adam, built it in the year 133 of creation, during a fit of raving madness. He gave it the name of his son Enoch, and peopled it with giants, who were punished for their iniquities by the flood. The local Muslims also believed that it was beyond the capability of humans to move the enormous stones of Baalbek.
We couldn't move them
Could
now.
the temples of Baalbek be the shrine that Cain built for Abel? They are conveniently located under the giant tree. Or did Nimrod come here and continue to build Babel after the flood, like the Maronite faith and the Bible strongly suggests? Or could it be where Freemasonry all began? The Masonic books that I had a look at while in Lebanon specifically focused on the books of Ezekiel, Daniel, Nehemiah, Nimrod, and Babel. Or did God take the giant trees and store them at Antarctica, as written in Job, for times of trouble and war? The book of Job, chapter 33, verse 22, clearly states, "Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against a time of trouble, against a day of battle and war?"
So if you made it this far, we really want to thank you for watching the Ancient Tree Research Project, Giant Cedars of Lebanon. If you are new to this idea, then watch a video called No Forests on Flat Earth. It's the video that changed everything when it came out in 2016.
That was a great video.
Also, Rosette has a playlist of her
That
own
is a great
videos
video.
called There Are No Forests Decoded. Be sure to check that out. I completely understand that this sounds crazy, and even I wanted nothing to do with it when it first came up. But the more you look into it, the realer it gets. It becomes quite clear that we are merely living in the aftermath of what used to be, and even the smaller version of trees that we see today are being wiped out with no problem. If the money-hungry corporations don't handle it, then things like chemtrails will. They are rapidly destroying our environment while the politicians yell global warming and blame you. It's just sad, really, and at times it seems that there's nothing you can do, but there is something that you can do. While you are here, you can be your best and treat yourself, your friends, your family, and your surroundings with respect. You can make others aware that are around you so that they can make better choices for themselves. Sharing is caring. The fact is, whatever is happening here on Earth is something that is meant to play out a certain way. This is why there are so many synchronicities. This is why the Bible contains so much truth and prophesizes what's going on in the world today. We seem to be trapped in an endless cycle, and we always will be unless we get it right, and we far from have it right this time around. The messed up thing is that the world is only going to get worse unless you decide to make a change. Every individual counts in the whole. So start being a better person today and quit letting the psychopaths that use money to enslave you control your mind and what you think.
Good one. Yeah, that dude was weird. Very weird he was. It's nuts. Yeah, he was a weird. Yeah, definitely something way different about him than any troll I've ever dealt with too. He was, I don't know, it was weird. I mean, it wasn't super. It wasn't like he was being super mean or anything like that. It was just like, okay, well, what do you believe? Whatever. But yeah, I mean, usually they're just hella crazy and mean, and he was just, I don't know, he was different. Yeah, well, probably one of those too. Dude, that reminds me of like the ice castle in Zelda. This music does. Let's see. Let's see what we're gonna go for here, guys. 2 seconds. Dun, dun, dun. I'm not sleepy. I've been drank so much damn tea I can't. I sure in the hell ain't going to bed. Okay, this one looks good.
My name's Christopher Walker, and I'm about to tell you how I reclaim my manhood.
J-Dreamers welcomes you to the live stream.
Our world, our history, and ourselves are not what we think it is. Our true history has been hidden from us. Pieces of the puzzle left behind for us to pick up and put together to figure out the bigger picture. Many of us who have gone down this rabbit hole of conspiracy or truth to find meaning to our existence and to history itself. Who are we and where do we come from? What really happened in the ancient past? These are all things that we'll be talking about today, including the newest revelations of the realm that we live in, our true past that's been hidden from us, stripped away, deleted, burned, and kept in secret libraries around the world and underground. However, the powers that be could not take it all away from us. The evidence is all around us in the world that we live in. We just need to open our eyes to the truth. Now, some of the things that we'll be talking about in tonight's live stream, everything we'll be talking about is the ancient petrified world. The world that existed long before the world that we know today. A world that's like Wonderland than what we are used to seeing. A world where there were titans, giants. A world where the gods walked about and warred against the titans. A world that was terraformed and destroyed and taken over. A world where there was war between two different races. The largest of them, known as the Titans, turned into rock, and they fell. Now, before the rock titans fell, there was a magnificent garden paradise where everything was much bigger. Everything was fantastic and amazing and terrible to behold for us today. We had giant trees shooting up into the skies, beyond the clouds, reaching up into the heavens. And that world was terraformed and cut down by the Titans. And then the waters were introduced into our world, the oceans as we call them, and everything turned into rock. We walk around on the rocks today. We take looks at the mountains